It's been too long since we took the time. No one's to blame. I know time flies so quickly. But when I see you, darling, it's like we both are falling in love again. It'll be just like starting over. Starting over.
Yes, it's the one and only John Lennon with Just Like Starting Over to start our show on this Monday, the 8th of December. And of course, it was on this day, December the 8th, back in 1980, that John Lennon was assassinated in New York, shot dead by a crazed fan who had asked for an autograph and then did the deed. We'll talk more about that with our good friend and musicologist, Brian Allison, when he joins us, as he does every Monday morning at 11 for This Week in Music History. But I chose Just Like Starting Over to start the show today because it was released about 2 months before that fateful shooting, and it turned out to be a number one song in both the U.S. and the U.K., the final single that John Lennon released in his lifetime, appeared on the album Double Fantasy. A very good Monday morning to you. It is the 8th of December, as mentioned. Hope the weekend was great. I've got 2 quick things to say. One, it's too cold. I'm sorry. I know I'm a broken record at this time of year. It's way too cold out there. I froze parts of my body that I did not wish to freeze early this morning. And the second thing is, I know this is a tired old tale, but rarely has it impacted me this much in recent times because I don't do a whole heck of a lot of driving. I'm not often playing the game, if you will, of where can I get the best price on my gasoline purchase. I go to the same place because I don't have to fill up that often. But as it turns out, I knew that I was heading to Guelph yesterday with our Kitchener Rangers, and just between you and me, when we do a road trip to Guelph, I don't bother hopping on the bus because I figure I'm spending as much time hopping on and hopping off the bus as I would spend just driving myself to the Sleeman Center in Guelph. So knowing that I was going to be heading to Guelph on Sunday, I happened to be out on Saturday. Oh, and can I just make it a third thing? Quick shout out. Holy Hannah with Chris Kindle Market this year. City of Kitchener, you went and outdone yourself. My goodness gracious. We were down on Saturday night. What an incredible atmosphere. Lots of new stuff. Beautiful bright lights. It was fantastic all around. And of course, we found the stuff that we wanted to buy. But man, oh man, that was just really well done. Kudos to you, City of Kitchener, for a great Chris Kindle Market again this year. So while I was oot and about on Saturday, happened to go past a gas station on Victoria Street, and the price said $1.15.9 per liter. I thought, wow, that's not bad. I joked with my beloved. I said, it's practically free. And I said, this is perfect because I'm going to drive right down this street, Victoria, when I'm going to Guelph on Sunday. So perfect. This was Saturday night. I'm going to stop in there on Sunday morning, fill up on my way to Guelph. Bob's your uncle. So Sunday morning comes along. I get in my little car. I head towards Guelph. I go past that same gas station on Victoria Street in Kitchener. It's not $1.15.9 anymore. Now it's $1.26.9. From Saturday night to Sunday morning, the same ding-dang gas station went up 11 cents per liter. I said, well, to heck with that. I'm not buying my gas there. So I drove along, and then I'm looking and I'm at my gauge, and I think, I know I'm going to make it to Guelph and home again, but I'm going to need to fill up at some point. I might as well just do it now. This is when I built time into my schedule to fill up. So I stopped at the station along Highway 7 at Shawn's Station Road, the Pioneer that's out there. It was $1.26. So I thought, well, basically same as back in town. So I filled up. That's on my way to Guelph on Sunday morning, okay? Coming home from Guelph, late Sunday afternoon, almost evening, around 5:30, I'm driving home, and I go past that very same gas station where I filled up in the morning on the way to Guelph. Filled up for 126.9. And on my way home, it was 120.9. Same gas station, same day, about 6 hours apart, 6 cents less per liter. But wait, there's more. I come back into town. I go past that very same gas station that I had seen on Saturday night that was offering 115.9. Thought I'd fill up there on Sunday morning, except on Sunday morning it was 126.9. And I go past it on my way home from Guelph on Sunday afternoon, and it's 116.9. 10 cents lower per liter, same gas station, same day, 6 hours apart. Can anyone, I know you can't, it's a rhetorical question. There is zero explanation for that. Absolutely none. And usually I've given up on the whole gas station game, if you will, because I find that when we play it, we look for even cheaper by a few cents per liter, right? And I do the math. I've got about a 50-liter tank, 2 or 3 cents. It's $1.50, whatever. In this particular case, we're talking $5. I wouldn't mind keeping $5 extra in my pocket. Thank you very much. It just frustrated me a little bit. Again, I know I'm telling an old tale, but come on, 10 cents less, same gas station, same day, 6 hours apart. It's ridiculous. Kevin is on the phone with me this morning. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, good morning, Mike. Actually, I've been trying to call you and talk about this matter sometime, but I was just maybe now is the best time to call you. Always remember, the price of the gas goes with sun. When the sun goes up in the morning, the price of the gas goes up. When the sun goes down at night, the price of the gas comes down. Always like that. I mean, I'm traveling back and I never fill up my gas during the day because it's about 1:34. The same gas station, 8 o'clock at night, is like 1:15 or something.
But why, Kevin? I want to know why. Why?
That's exactly what I want to know. And you know, sometimes in a segment in a 570 News, you guys have the price of the gas, and I say the price of the gas is going to go up by 1 cent. Well, that's not the case because maybe it goes up, but the price of the gas goes up and down by sometimes 20 cents. Sometimes I go down Homer Watson, and one gas station is like 124 or something, and the one is like 116. I'm like, why? They buy their gas like from another cheaper country?
Well, no,
you don't know.
Exactly. Kevin, listen, I hear you. It's incredibly frustrating. 10 cents, same gas station, same day. Steve, good morning.
Yeah, the gas prices are kind of crazy. My wife and I have made a habit of going to get gas at about 9 o'clock at night, and that's when it's always rock bottom. Like it'll start out at about a $1.30 something, but if you wait until 9 o'clock at night, you can get it down to like 115, 118. That's not as concerning to me though as the amount of gas I end up wasting going from traffic light to traffic light here along Fisher Hallman every day. I know we've touched on it before, and you've had people on the show saying, well, you know, if they're out of sync, just give us a call and we'll come do it. But I have a hard time believing it's a coincidence when the region makes money hand over fist by making the roads as inefficient as possible with the good old fuel tax.
Well, I don't think the region makes money on the fuel tax. I know they get a kickback. Part of the fuel tax is delivered to municipalities from the feds, but I don't know that I guess then by extension you could make that argument. I tell you what, I got frustrated coming out of Guelph yesterday along Woodlawn Road. I could not catch a green light for love nor money. Anyway, super frustrating. I know it's an old tale. A tale as old as time. I used to cover Dan McTagg when he was a Liberal MP, and he'd show up at various gas stations around Toronto. I was reporting in Toronto at the time, and he'd be on his soapbox talking about gas prices, and here we are decades later. I was just blown away. 10 cents lower, the same gas station on the same day. I want that $5 back, but I'm going to learn now because usually my fill-up time is in the morning on my way to work. You know what? Based on what you just told me, if I can save 5, 6, 7 cents a liter, $2.53, $3.50, I'm saving it, baby. I will fill up at night from now on. I'm going to remember Kevin's rule. When the sun comes up, the price goes up. When the sun goes down, the price goes down. While I was filling up yesterday at that station on Highway 7 at Shantz Station Road, I was thinking about an old friend of mine. And I do mean that sincerely, friend. Paul Robertson was as much a part of this show as any host who has been on this show for decades, truly. I mean, we'll trace it all the way back to the Jeff Allen days and probably even before. When I started filling in as a host on talk shows on this radio station, you could always count on calls from Preston Paul, as he was affectionately known. When I use his last name, Robertson, so many of you know immediately the person that I am talking about. And I thought about Paul yesterday while I was filling up with gas, because I was complaining one day, or observing by way of complaint, that it always seemed to be colder and windier at the gas station. Filling up in the winter was a difficult thing because the wind was just whipping around, and I was just complaining and kvetching about it, as I am wont to do in this weather. And Paul sent an email, a lengthy email, with all kinds of detailed technical jargon explaining exactly why gas stations were built in the areas that they were built to maximize the efficiency of the gasoline coming out of the nozzle and into your gas tank. It was all complete and utter poppycock, but he made it sound so legitimate. And I had a good chuckle about that. Again, as I say, when I talk about Preston Paul, or I use his full name, Paul Robertson, many of you will automatically remember the man who has called religiously for so many years. He got on nerves from time to time, but Paul was as passionate could be. And he did tend to go on, which, quite frankly, as the host of a talk show, I will acknowledge that's a very good thing. That's what we do in talk radio, right? We fill the time with words, not music. And Paul had plenty of words to share, and he shared them with us regularly. You didn't always like his point of view, but he was passionate about his side of things, and he was always willing to listen to another side, but he wanted to make sure you understood his side. Along with that gas station email he once sent, I will also always remember Paul for the time that he got into that event in Cambridge where former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was addressing the crowd. And Paul got his hands on the microphone to ask a question. And in typical Paul Robertson fashion, he had about a 4-minute statement before he got around to his question, which was a source of frustration for hosts on this show from time to time, myself included. But once you got to know Paul, and I was privileged to have gotten to know him, you didn't mind it nearly as much because, again, you knew where he was coming from. You knew that underneath that gruff vocal exterior, he had a heart of gold. He really, really did. A couple of you have noticed and sent emails in the last little while that you haven't heard Paul in a while. And that's because Paul had fallen into poor health. He had sent me emails and confided in me about this. And we lost Paul on the weekend. I believe actually it was Friday afternoon, to be exact, that Paul passed away. So somebody who was, again, as much a part of this show as any host has ever been, an unofficial member of 570 News Radio and its various talk shows, has passed away. And it's a loss for all of us. It really is. I wanted to share with you an email I received from Aaron, who is Paul's son. I wanted to call this story in, Aaron writes to Mike at 570news.com. The timing didn't work. I'm not sure where this story might fit into a broadcast. If it doesn't, no big deal. But I have heard how much my father enjoyed interacting with the Farwell show. So here goes from Aaron. As we get older, we start to do things earlier. This is because nighttime driving becomes more difficult. Bright lights and road lines are harder to see. If the roads are wet, those lines completely vanish. On top of that, older people don't stay up as late. Not really much new information. True, Aaron, but I can certainly relate to all of that. At the end of March 2025, Aaron goes on in his story, the small town of Baileyborough had the worst ice storm I have been in. Roads were terrible. I was worried trees would fall on the house. We lost power in the afternoon. As things began to thaw, our sump was filling up fast. I spent hours scooping water out into storage containers to transfer outside. I finally gave up around 8 p.m. and told the wife our basement was going to flood. She insisted I call my father for advice. Around 9 p.m., my father, Paul Robertson, gathered up a generator, some extension cords, and various other things. With my brother as a driving companion, he drove over 2 hours at night in bad conditions. Upon arrival, we got to work setting up the house with power. Once everything was set, he drove back to Cambridge. Paul saved the day. Why? Because his son needed help. Because his 8-year and 5-month-old grandkids were without power. Maybe that was part of it. But the real reason is that this is just the person Paul Robertson was. He sure loved his talk radio. Thanks for drawing the blueprints of life out for me. And that was in an email from Aaron under the subject line from a passenger seat listener. If it's one other thing you needed to know about Paul Robertson, and when Aaron brings up Baileyboro, every time Paul went up that way, he would stop at Doo-Doo's, bring me back some butter tarts. He'd come over here at the station before I went on the air at 9 and drop them off. But another thing to always remember about Paul Robertson is that he loved his family. It's a real tragedy that he never did get to see his grandkids again before his passing. But that's all water under the bridge at this point. We lost Paul this weekend, and we all lose a little bit more because of it. So we'll get to your Farwell Show 5 and other things in just a little bit here on the show. But I wanted to make sure we acknowledged the life that was, the man that was, the good friend of this radio program for so many years, Paul Robertson, as we begin the Mike Farwell Show this Monday morning on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our Farwell Show 5 for your Monday morning, let's get back to the phones. They're always open to you when we start the show. Mary is with us. Good morning, Mary.
Oh, good morning, Mike. You know, last week and maybe the week before, I was thinking, we haven't heard from Paul.
Yeah, I heard a few people had been asking about him because he's such a regular presence on the show.
Well, I thought he maybe had gone hunting up north or something and couldn't connect. I'm so sad because he was a character. He really was a character. And remember those calls when he used to start with, "Once upon a time." And then you knew you were in for it.
You did. He got put in the penalty box for a while because he went on a little too long.
But I believe he had a good heart. You know more of that than I do. But no, he made his mark. He really made his mark on all the listeners, I do believe. And I will miss him.
Yeah, we all will, Mary. Thanks for that.
He really made his mark.
And Mary's listening to herself on the Echo. After all these years, Mary still hasn't quite grasped the idea that you turn down your radio or TV when you make the call in. But thanks for sharing that, Mary. It is a Monday morning, the 8th of December. Let's get to how we usually start the show. And that, of course, is with your Farwell Show 5. Number 1, a man is in hospital in critical condition after a shooting in the region. Gun violence we only learned about when the 22-year-old victim showed up at hospital with a gunshot wound. The suspect and the location of the shooting have not yet been identified. Number 2, OPP are investigating a possible road rage shooting that forced the temporary closure of a busy stretch of Highway 401 overnight. Happened around 1:30 this morning on the westbound lanes of the 401 between Guelph Line and Highway 6 South. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. No surprise that November was one of the whitest we've ever seen in Waterloo region. The weather station at the University of Waterloo reports almost 60 centimeters of snow last month, more than we've had in more than 7 decades. Back in the 1950s, we had a November with more than 60 centimeters of snow, all of which fell in one day. Number 4, Canadians who booked with Air Transat should be checking the status of their flights this morning. Travel company Transat AT has said flight cancellations would kick off today and ramp up over the next 2 days ahead of a potential work stoppage on Wednesday. That's after the union, representing some 750 Air Transat pilots, issued a 72-hour notice yesterday following nearly a year of negotiations for a new contract. The union says they want a new collective agreement that boosts wages, job security, working conditions, and quality of life. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Steinman Mennonite Church in Baden is hosting a Love Your Neighbor Communities Christmas on Sunday. The multimedia, light, and music extravaganza will feature flamenco artist Janate, singer, pianist Annette Hector, Lisa Hagen and the local vocals, and Derek Goupil and the Hillview Band. The concert takes place Sunday from 2 until 4:30 at Steinman Mennonite Church in Baden. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning.
The main point here is, why are they telling me what I can drink at home? What, can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
Do the math. I've been doing some math all weekend long, and I am very pleased to report to you that our 570 News Radio Tree of Hope 50/50 raffle in support of Family and Children's Services Foundation in Waterloo Region has risen to a take-home jackpot of greater than $50,000. $50,560 in the jackpot for you. And of course, that much money supporting families in our community this holiday season. It's winning all around. So I got to thinking, I mean, we love winning, right? And we want to win more. I want to see you win big. I want to see big support for Family and Children's Services Foundation here in the region of Waterloo. So it's December, right? It's a weekend. And for the last week, I have been inundated. And I mean inundated. Even my beloved got into the act last night and posted on social media that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, which you know is not true. And I know you tell me these things and you say these things to me and you give me the gears every December because you know it gets under my skin. It's not. Bruce Willis has told you it's not a Christmas movie, but you continue to insist that it is. I am as stubborn as the day is long. But here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if you can get this jackpot in the 570 News Radio Tree of Hope 50/50 raffle up to $60,000, I will admit on the air without any reservation that Die Hard, in fact, is a Christmas movie. If the jackpot gets to $60,000, I will admit that it is. Even though I don't believe it, I'll be straight to the point without reservation admitting that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And if the jackpot gets to $70,000, one of you sent me this Die Hard advent calendar where Hans Gruber is falling from the top of the Nakatomi Plaza. We'll count it down together until Christmas if the jackpot gets to $70,000. But first things first, if the jackpot can make it to $60,000, I will admit, even though it's going to pain me, that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Get your tickets at FACS5050.com and let's get that jackpot growing. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I have a feeling that many of us could identify one of these things. I feel all of a sudden like I'm asking you the not $1 million question that we do on Fridays. But no, that's not what I'm doing. But I do believe that almost all of us could, from the top of our head, say, you know what? This intersection could use a little bit of help when it comes to increasing safety. While many of us could think of one that could use a little bit of help, some neighbors in the Galt area of Cambridge are taking action to improve safety. The organizer of a petition to improve the safety at St. Andrews Street and Grand Ridge Drive in Cambridge is Cassandra Vedder, who makes time for our show this morning. Cassandra, good morning.
Good morning.
What's it like at St. Andrews and Grand Ridge from your experience? What is it that you've been seeing and or hearing that has caused concern?
Yeah, there is a lot of high speeds at the intersection and a lot of near misses, sometimes honking and yelling, just with people's decisions and when they're trying to go through the intersection or just, coming in and out of the city.
What does the intersection look like today?
A lot of the times it's during rush hour that it's the worst. And so you'll have a lineup of cars at both of the stop signs. And then when you have people going out into the country, a lot of the time they're speeding up still in the 50 zone to try go out into the country. And then you have the opposite coming in where people are going over 80 kilometers an hour, but by the time they're in the 50 zone, they're not going 50. And there is a median in the middle for people to cross, but I think all pedestrians and bikers and everyone just try to avoid the intersection at all costs because it's not safe to cross there.
Is it a four-way stop or is it just stopping traffic? I think it just stops traffic on Grand Ridge, right?
Yeah, it's just a 2 stop signs there.
Right. So St. Andrews is the straight through, and that is the street that would lead you out into a more rural area where you're either picking up speed going out or not slowing down coming in.
That's right.
Okay. So what kinds of increased safety measures would you like to see?
I think anything would be better than the current setup. I know a lot of neighbors, as we've discussed this, have talked about a traffic lights or even possibly a roundabout. And I think if the region does analyze the intersection, they'll be able to come up with whatever is the best solution. But I do think that all of us that live in the area know that something has to change. And even if it's something small in the meantime, just to make it safer, like having, either adding in more stop signs or putting in a kids at play sign or the your speed sign just to make people aware would be great. But I do think the petition is showing how many people in the area and elsewhere all are aware of this intersection since the petition has been viewed almost 4,000 times. I hope that a small change will happen in the meantime, but as we work towards something better and more permanent as time goes on.
Yeah, more than 400 signatures on that petition already, too, as of this morning. As somebody, Cassandra, who has lived in this area for a decade, how have you changed your own behaviors to take kind of safety matters into your own hands?
Yeah, so we have 3 little kids, and so we have multiple locks on our front door just to make sure that they aren't getting out without a grown-up. And we do discourage playing in the front yard because of the speeds. And so we have also, thankfully, we are really good friends with our neighbors behind us, and we have a gate going from our yard to their yard. So anytime we're going to St. Andrews Estates, which is the local pool and tennis courts, or going for bike rides or family walks, we're always going through their yard just to not have to walk along St. Andrews. I also did take the kids for a bike ride in our chariot this past summer, and I crossed on the median at Grand Ridge in St. Andrews, and that was the first and last time I was going to do that because the chariot and the bike don't actually fit in the middle of it, so that did not feel safe. And yeah, thankfully some people will slow down and let you go and treat it as if it's a crosswalk, but that also poses dangers too because other people aren't anticipating that a car is just going to stop in the middle of that intersection. So
And just so I'm understanding this right, I think you painted the picture well. That median is a little bit like what they call a pedestrian island or refuge, but when you're there with the bike and the chariot, it overhangs still onto the road.
It does. And even with the stroller, too, you still feel the speed of the cars going around you. And the city has done a great job of improving the parks in our area. And with the pool and tennis courts nearby, we have a lot of people who like to be out and about and trying to go to the parks and trying to go to the pool. But anyone that lives on the west side of St. Andrew's Street, if they are members at the pool, there are neighbors that have told me that they drive the 30 seconds to 1 minute because they don't feel like it's safe to allow their kids to walk across the street to go. And I think every single time we've crossed the street, I don't know that I've walked across. You're always running across to get there.
Who have you talked to at the city about this problem?
Over the last probably year or two, I have reached out to the city, or called the non-emergency police line, to ask to see if there could be an increased police presence just to slow drivers down, which has been helpful. And I think they have been doing surveys of the intersection, but from what I can recall, I don't think there's been a full analysis of it since 2022. And I do think there has been, especially in the last 5 years, we've seen a large amount of young families move into the area. So I'm just hoping that, in Fernando too, our neighbor that started this with me, we just are hoping that this, speeds the process up along to be able to get something put in place before a fatality or serious injury occurs.
So the idea behind the petition then was to draw more attention to this and hopefully get some action.
Yeah.
Cassandra, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Cassandra Vetter, along with her neighbor, Fernando Alves, have launched a petition asking for greater safety measures at St. Andrew Street and Grand Ridge Drive in Cambridge. This petition currently has 400 plus signatures and is beginning to generate conversation, not just in the neighborhood, but beyond. Here's one of the challenges that you're going to run into right away. Grand Ridge Drive is a municipal street under the control of the city of Cambridge. St. Andrew's Street, it's a regional road under the control of our upper level of local government. Do you want me to go down this rabbit hole again? I won't go down this rabbit hole again. But it means that if you are the resident of the city of Cambridge and you take this issue to your local municipal councillor, that councillor will have to escalate, so to speak, the issue to the region, and thus begins all of the back and forth. I'll remind you of a road, basically the road that leads right here to our studios on the boardwalk, Ira Needles Boulevard. If you take Ira Needles Boulevard out towards Wilmot Township, it turns into Trussler Road. And you know that at Trussler Road and the expressway, Highway 78, east or westbound, you get onto or off of you get off the highway, either eastbound or westbound, at Trussler Road, and you have a very difficult turn to make if you're making a left into the busy traffic on Trussler Road. Municipal councillors in Kitchener, in the area, have raised this issue. The region eventually got around to identifying it as a priority, and this goes back almost 2 years now, and we are hearing that by the end of this year, temporary traffic lights should be in place on Trussler at the expressway. Again, that's a 2-year process. The Ministry of Transportation would not have to be involved in this. St. Andrews and the regional road, there's no highway there that would involve the MTO. So you're eliminating one layer, but that's just an idea of what it takes to go from the city level to the regional level, get those two sides talking, get them on the same page, get the necessary studies done to determine whether or not safety measures are needed and what those safety measures would ultimately look like. As I said at the beginning, I'll bet you that many of us have an intersection of our own that we think could use a little bit of sprucing up safety-wise. And I'd be interested in learning from you what those intersections are. Maybe we'll find the same intersection come up time and again. But Cassandra and her neighbors in this Galt area of Cambridge at St. Andrew Street and Grand Ridge Drive certainly have a case, because you've got vehicles either accelerating to get out into the more rural areas along St. Andrews or not decelerating as they come back into town. And despite the fact there's a median there for pedestrians as they cross, this is really dangerous for residents in the area, some of whom take the 1-minute drive to nearby amenities because they feel safer in their vehicle than they do walking and or riding their bike, especially pushing a stroller. So we know that St. Andrews and Grand Ridge is one. What other intersections could we find in this region that could use a little bit of attention safety-wise? Would love to get perspective from you. 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Phone lines are always open on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
From what I can recall, I don't think there's been a full analysis of it since 2022. And I do think there has been, especially in the last 5 years, we've seen a large amount of young families move into the area. So I'm just hoping that this speeds the process up along to be able to get something put in place before a fatality or serious injury occurs.
Cassandra Vetter has, for a decade, lived in the Grand Ridge Drive and St. Andrews Street area of Cambridge. And she says she has seen far too many near misses or flat-out collisions for her liking. She's even got extra locks on the door so that her kids can't quickly, spontaneously, and with the enthusiasm of youth, run out into the front yard, which is right at this intersection and has become a very dangerous place. One of the photos shared shows a collision that happened at the intersection where the vehicles ended up onto the front lawns of the properties at the corner. So the petition, now with more than 400 signatures, is a way for Cassandra and her neighbors to draw attention to what they believe is a dangerous intersection and one that needs some sort of support by way of increased safety measures. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. I get the sense that many of us could think of an intersection of our own where these safety measures could be put into place. And as we were in that commercial break, I started wondering to myself, I always come back to this because I had an experience this morning that just made me shake my head again. But safety measures, yes. However, how much of this is simply the ignorance or distraction or take your pick of description of drivers that make this even more dangerous? I know St. Andrew Street as well as you do, and I know that as you're coming into town or going out of town, the speed limit increases. But when you're in town and the speed limit is down to 50, then what are you doing traveling at a speed far greater than 50? Look, I'm not going to be too hard on you here, and I'll understand that there is a little bit of give and take with where your foot is at on that accelerator. But if you're up over 60 and 65 and beyond, as you're traveling now into a residential part of the community, what are you doing? And this morning, and this happens frequently because of my daily use of the expressway, but I find myself, I just shook my head. I'm coming onto the highway at Ottawa Street. So if you know the expressway headed westbound, you know that if you enter at Ottawa Street and you stay in the right lane, you're getting off at the roundabout or at the flyover, whether you want to or not, right? So there is an immediate need, if entering at Ottawa Street, to get over at least one lane. And eventually you have to move over one more because that second lane ends just past the flyover. But if you can get over one lane, you're fine. Otherwise, you're trapped in that right lane and you're getting off on the flyover and you're heading to Highway 8 to the 401, and that's probably not where you want to go. It's certainly not where I want to go in the morning. So there I am, and I'm merging onto the highway, and I'm at speed. I'm up over 90 already as I'm merging into the highway. I've got my left turn signal on. I do it as soon as I get to the bottom of that on-ramp because I know I got to get over. And there is one vehicle on the road that's near me. And I could tell just by watching my side view that he was going to keep coming. His speed was so great. He is not letting me in. I've got my signal on. I'm already at speed, and he wasn't going to let me in. So I slow down, and I was in a mood. I'm not going to tell a lie to you. I'll never lie to you. I flashed those high beams again and again and again and again as I pulled in behind him. And then what do you think he did? Went into the far right lane, the lane I was in. All he had to do was come in behind me. He could have kept going at the same speed. We just would have zigzagged. Instead, he just barreled down, and I just thought to myself, what are you doing? Like, does nobody care about anybody else on the road today? I find it incredibly frustrating. Ed is on the phone with us this morning. Hello, Ed.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. On Dundas Street in Galt, Monroe comes out onto Dundas. It's the same kind of corner as what you're talking about.
I know exactly where you mean. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and there is an island there to cross. But the speed on Dundas Street, like I'm 81 years old and I use a walker. I cannot go across there.
Of course.
Yeah, it's just too dangerous.
Yeah.
And so Shoppers, although I'm only 2 houses away basically from Shoppers, but they still deliver my drugs because I can't cross there.
Yeah. Ed, I appreciate you calling. I hope we can get something done. Have you thought about, would a traffic light do it, a flashing yellow, anything like that?
I would like to see a flashing light like what they have on Cedar Street at Westgate.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, that would be such a help.
Ed, appreciate the call today. I would think the same thing for St. Andrews and Grand Ridge, right? Why don't we just put a flashing yellow there prior to or right at the intersection, just as another reminder to those motorists, the area that they are in is an area where they need to slow down. And Ed identifies another excellent one, similar situation, right? Because if you're on Dundas, you could be heading out towards the town of, and then into Hamilton, et cetera, from Cambridge. So I just hope that we can use these conversations as a reminder that getting there faster doesn't do anybody any good. Like, what is it we talk about? A couple of minutes here? We really need to slow down and take better care on the roads. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Something we touched on briefly last week and we'll do a deeper dive into now is in the city of Cambridge, where you win some, you lose some. The city did win an appeal at the Ontario Land Tribunal that upheld the city of Cambridge's own planning principles and zoning regulations, which is rare. Usually when a developer takes something to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or OLT, the developer wins. About 97% of the time, the developer comes out with what it wants as opposed to the city getting what it wants. But the city was, in this particular case, able to avoid the severance of a parcel of land that would have led to the creation of additional units, but something that didn't fit within existing zoning regulations in Cambridge. So there was that win. And then there was the loss, and the loss came at the site of the former Preston Springs Hotel, where now Hosstown Holdings will be able to build 3 condominium towers. I suppose on the bright side, it's nice to see, or at least nice to think that something will eventually happen on the site, because I think most of us remember the day that the old Preston Springs Hotel came down. It came down in an awful hurry after an emergency order for demolition was issued, and I was amongst many who were standing there watching the old girl come down on that December day back in 2020. Let's dig into this a little further with Scott Hamilton, who's the Ward 7 councillor in the city of Cambridge. Scott, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. I like the fact you started this segment with the Gorillaz. That's a classic song, so well done.
Anything to get your ears ready for the tough questions I always throw at you, Scott.
Sounds good. I'm ready to chase away the case of the Mondays, Mike, with some tough questions. Sounds good.
I was thinking back on the origins of this OLT appeal in the first place, and you stood out as a voice. I think you were the lone voice on council saying that this should not even have been sent to the OLT because you thought that what the developer was proposing was ideal for the site.
That's correct. And so there's been a bit of a contentious history to this property generally. As you mentioned, it was the site of the former Preston Springs Hotel. It was a Canadian and international landmark. And it fell into disrepair and eventually got to the state where it had to be demolished because it risked endangering human life, people kind of exploring it. And in 2012, this site was purchased by developer Halftown, and I believe they tried to make about 7 attempts to develop the site, and it always hit resistance. So recently, in March of 2024, they brought their most recent application to City Council after going through the planning process. And originally, it was for 3 towers, 24 stories, 26, and 22 stories, and they reduced it to 20 stories, 20 stories, and 18. And as you mentioned, at the very end of this council meeting, there was a very sudden revision or transformation to all these plans where council revised it, and it ended up changing the footprint of the building, shrinking it to 2 towers, lowering it to 15 stories each. And in my mind, I thought, I don't think this is not going to play well at the OLT if there are no studies and designs, if staff haven't seen it, if experts haven't commented on it. So I respect all my colleagues around the horseshoe, Mike, but I could not agree with that proposal at that time. I didn't understand it then, and I don't understand it now.
So how do you feel about what is now coming forward? Is the developer getting what it originally hoped for with 20, 20, and 18 stories?
I believe so. I hope so. I believe it's 20, 20, and 17 stories now, and this is after going through the OLT process. And you started at the outset of your show, Mike, talking about one victory the city of Cambridge had recently, and that was development in Henry Street. And just to make a clarification for everyone out there, the OLT is an independent body in Ontario, and it typically resolves arguments about land use planning, zoning, heritage. And the OLT sides with developers 97% of the time, but certain criteria have to be met. And one of those criteria is typically if city staff also agree with the development proposal, but it gets rejected, for example, then that's impetus for the OLT to say, well, your own city staff recommended you accept this, so we're just going to go ahead and accept it for you. Now, in the case of the Henry Street development, what happened is that city staff actually said, hey, Cambridge Council, this is not going to work. I would not recommend accepting this. There were issues over ARUs and zoning and the number of units on the property. So we followed staff's advice. We recommended against Henry Street. And the OLT, like city staff, they follow the provincial guidelines, in this case, the regional guidelines, the city guidelines, and they said, hey, we're going to reject this too. Staff voted against it. We agree. This is outside of proper planning principles. When it comes to the case of Hosstown and the most recent proposal to develop those 3 towers at the OLT, notably in March of 2024, city staff agreed with Hosstown, and they said this is the best way to fit compatibility, density, protect heritage, and allow for revitalization of this essential gateway to the city. And so the OLT ended up siding with pretty much what city staff recommended back in March 2024.
I know neighbors in the area also raised some concerns, Scott. And we hear these things an awful lot when new developments are happening, particularly large developments like this, 3 condominium towers. We're talking more than 600 units. With that comes almost as many parking spaces, the additional traffic impacts, etc. How much do those concerns weigh on you as a councillor in Cambridge?
Honestly, quite a lot because as a councillor, you want to make sure that all of your residents feel happy with where they live. You want to make sure that as many residents as possible are excited about the changes in the future of the city, the direction that not only the whole city but their neighborhood is going. But there's no question when it comes to the issue of growth and developments and the contextual change of neighborhoods. Some people just will not like the changes when it comes to the density that's going to appear in their neighborhood, different built forms, height. And in this case, one of the issues the OLT pointed out is that they ruled in favor of Hasstown as the original Hasstown proposal being more compatible with the neighborhood than the city's revised version, because compatibility, as they define it, is not the same or even similar to, but, quote, compatibility is the ability of adjacent or nearby land uses to coexist in harmony. So in this case, the OLT stepped back and said, well, look, this is in a major transit station area. The proposed ION station is going to be less than a 10-minute walk. It's a gateway to downtown Preston, walkable to the core. The 401 is around the corner. So this larger, denser design is actually far more compatible with this area than other proposals we've seen. So it's never good, Mike, if you have someone who's lived in an area for decades and decades and they don't like the changes that are coming. But as a city councilor, you have to make those tough decisions to look at the future of the city, what's best for residents and neighbors, not just today, but in the future. And also as a city councilor, it's a part-time job, but we are also essentially tools of the province. Like, we are bound to follow the provincial policy statements, the regional official plan, the city official plan, and of course the advice of city staff. And in this case, the Hasstown proposal did tick all those boxes.
You mentioned earlier, Scott, what this former hotel, what the Preston Springs Hotel meant by way of a landmark, the international travelers, all of these different things. It had a very significant history in the community. How important is it, or how much do you think this new development can become that next landmark on this particular site?
I really think it can. And it surprised me reading the OLT's report. They pointed this out as well. You kind of think of the OLT as kind of this administrative neutral body, but they actually seem to express some excitement about the potential for revitalization at this key gateway of Preston and of Cambridge. There are towers going across the street as well at, I think, 255 King Street, adding approximately 600 units. And the Hasstown proposal also pitches about 635 units. There'll be commercial space on the floor. There'll be a public square. So if you think about the transformational potential at what is currently a pretty empty, somewhat emaciated corner, it's very substantial. And I can look at the example of the Gaslight District in Galt, where when that was being contemplated, when it was being built, it did face similar pushback, similar issues, neighborhood concerns over change, over density. Will it ruin the vibe of the downtown core? And now it's just become a gem in the crown of Cambridge. And I've no doubt that this particular development has the potential to have just that transformative effect, and it will be beneficial for Preston and the city for years and decades to come.
I think it's been, just personally, too long already for this site to sit in the state that it's been sitting since the old hotel came down. Now we've gone through this delay through getting it through the OLT. Any idea at this point, Scott, when we might see shovels in the ground? Does council have any control over that?
No, unfortunately, not to my knowledge. I know council has approved numerous projects over the years, even going back to the previous term of council, and we still didn't see shovels in the ground. So we have every developer and every business owner, small, medium, large, has to make sure that whatever they're doing, it's economically viable, because no one wants to make a poor investment and go out of business. So when those shovels will go in the ground, I'm not sure. And when they do, in order to proceed, this development still has to meet several studies, traffic, heritage, compatibility. But in this report, the OLT was very confident they would. So hopefully sometime in the future, Mike, because I think it has, even though it is a change for the neighborhood, it has tremendous potential. And I think it will transform what is currently, as you have described it, Mike, a bit of an eyesore of a corner into something that Preston and all Cambridge can be proud of.
Scott, I really appreciate you making time for the show this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
Appreciate the time, Mike. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Scott Hamilton, Ward 7 councillor in Cambridge, and the only councillor who years ago voted against last-minute revisions that would have changed, and changed rather dramatically, what is now going to go up on the site of the former Preston Springs Hotel. Once council made those 11th hour changes, The process moved through the Ontario Land Tribunal, as Scott described so well for us. City staff was already recommending that the proposal be accepted. He didn't see any reason to change that without studies, without any other input at that point, figuring it would eventually just lose at the OLT. It has, and now Hosstown Developments has the opportunity to build these 3 condominium towers. Again, we're looking at about 635 units by the time all is said and done, an almost equal number of parking spaces, which I think is going to be interesting. It's great that this development will be so close to the eventual LRT station. However, anybody that's going to be driving, and remember, lots of folks from Cambridge do, good access to the 401, which Preston Springs or this site would have, just up Fountain Street, boom, off you go. Well, then you're looking at vehicle traffic at an area where I like to call it, as you know, the Hotel California of Waterloo Region, right? You can check in anytime you like to Preston, but you can never leave because that Sean's Hell down around Fountain to King Street and then coming the other way when you're looking at what is very much an eyesore now, if you're asking me, on King Street coming out of Preston, you're sitting at that stoplight looking at the hill. There's nothing there anymore. And you've got those 2 left turn lanes to take you onto Fountain and then up Sean's Hell the other way. It is a very difficult area today when it comes to traffic volumes and moving around those volumes. Anything more that you add to it, I think, will be a real challenge. But we are in a time where we need to get as much housing as we can get in as little space as possible. And these 3 towers will rise where the Preston Springs Hotel once stood. The glass half full of this, the bright side for sure, is something will eventually go there. I suspect it's going to take a lot to wait for the market conditions, et cetera, to be just right to start the build. However, I would rather see something there than nothing, and maybe we then can start moving forward to the new development where the Preston Springs Hotel used to be. And now when we go by, I don't know about you, but I always think about what used to be there because there's nothing right now. If we get something else there, maybe we can start moving past this rather troubled history on the site and get some much needed housing for the region. What do you make of the plans? Do you have any concern about the impact it will have on nearby neighborhoods, on the traffic at King and Fountain in Cambridge, etc.? They're going to put a roundabout there. I think I remember hearing something about a possible roundabout there. Good gravy with the roundabouts. Phone line's always open to you. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Look at the example of the Gaslight District in Galt, where when that was being contemplated, it did face similar pushback, similar issues, neighborhood concerns over change, over density. Will it ruin the vibe of the downtown core? And now it's just become a gem in the crown of Cambridge. And I've no doubt that this particular development has the potential to have just that transformative effect, and it will be beneficial for Preston and the city for years and decades to come.
Ward 7 councillor from Cambridge, Scott Hamilton, joining us to talk about Preston Springs. What used to be the hotel will now be not 1, not 2, but 3 condominium towers. Across the street, kitty corner from more condominium towers, because if I haven't said it before, let me say it again now. You want a condo? Has Waterloo Region got one for you? Or what? Let's go to the phones and hear from you on what's proposed. Sean is with us, Farwell's Force member number 165. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Mike. The people in Preston are going to get mad at me, but I totally agree with Councillor Hamilton. We do need the housing, although I'm not totally sure condos will fall into the realm of affordable housing. But it will be nice to have something in that corner because honestly, although those buildings were very historical, they were not totally sustainable because nobody knew what to do with them. Unfortunately, there is a sort of a tendency among long-standing residents to want to keep their community underneath a glass bubble. It's just human nature, but I do agree with Councillor Hamilton. We do need those buildings.
Yeah, Sean, appreciate the call. I don't disagree that the buildings are needed. I do have some concern around the impact on this particular area, but don't we always? And that's part of the challenge with change. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you, my friend?
I'm all right, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Even after that humiliating loss on Saturday, ouch.
At least it was in a shootout, right? Like, because shootouts don't really count, but I hear you, brother. I hear you.
My phone lit up and I didn't like it.
You and me both. Why do they? You know why they do it? Because we're Leafs fans. That's
know.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I agree. That's great that they're doing something in that. That it is an eyesore. But my biggest concern is going to be the traffic, and then you're saying something about the LRT going down there. Like, where are they going to put all this?
Well,
I mean, it's a juggernaut already.
It is. The LRT at that point, I think, should still be elevated, if I've got my design correct in my mind. Coming down Chantel, it's going to be on a bridge, so to speak. So it shouldn't really land until somewhere around King and Eagle, I think. But anyway, but still, so the LRT will, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's crazy down there, especially when Toyota gets out. It is just, I mean, you can't move. It's crazy.
It's a great point.
I've been going to get around that.
No, that is the thing. Great point on the shift change, right? Because you're at Fountain and King then, and all of those vehicles backed up, and then if you want to get out of your condo, good luck at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call, Mike.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate hearing from you. And hang in there. Leafs still have points in 4 straight, right? Tough loss to that team that shall not be named on Saturday night, but at least it was in a shootout. Look, change is always difficult. Sean alluded to that. I've alluded to that. I think better than anything, something will go on this eyesore of a plot of land where the Preston Springs Hotel used to be. And if we focus on that, we'll continue moving forward. When shovels go in the ground, that is the next big question to be answered. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There is a concert coming up this weekend that I want to make you aware of, as a local choir will perform for us. And the co-chair of that choir, an old friend, joins me on the show to talk more about it. Eric Jackson Sarkany is with us. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Great to get a chance to chat with you about the Age of Majority Singers. This is the choir of which you are the co-chair. Who are the Age of Majority Singers?
Yeah, so the Age of Majority Singers are a mixed voice choir that was founded in 2013, really geared towards providing choral experiences for young adults in our community.
And this coming Saturday, you're going to be having your Winter's Light concert. Tell me more about this particular concert.
Yeah, so this concert, put together by our artistic director, Mary Catherine Pisano. She had this vision of kind of the, glimpses of hope that we see in the holiday season, those little things that we take joy in. So she came up with, a series of songs that are, some are contemporary, some are a little more choral, classical stuff that you would typically expect from a choir, that really play off of the things that make the holiday season so magical and so special for all of us.
What was it that drew you to the choir, Eric?
The mission, right? So the choir exists to bridge that gap. Post-secondary choirs, we sing a lot in high school in choirs, and then there's a lot of choral opportunities in church choirs and for the aging population, but not a whole lot for young adults. And so you kind of find yourself in this area where you're not really sure where to go after high school or after college choirs. So that mission really spoke to me, and the commitment to inclusivity, right? We're a secular choir. We do only secular music at our shows. So we're very accessible and welcoming to all.
What have you seen by way of benefit for these young adults who participate in the Age of Majorities Singers choirs?
Yeah, it's a sense of community. Honestly, it's getting to come together, once a week, escape reality, get away from the craziness of work and personal life and the world and everything, and just get to make something really beautiful with each other. There's just that sense of belonging when you're in a group of like-minded people that are all working towards the same thing.
You have a special guest at this particular show as well. A string quartet will be performing also?
Yes, the Penderecki String Quartet. We were very lucky to be honored with an Ontario Arts Council grant that allowed us to commission the Penderecki String Quartet. They are the quartet in residence at Wilfrid Laurier University, and they are, they've been around for 30 plus years. They perform all over the world, and so we're really excited to join with them. They'll also have a little solo set, so you'll get to hear a little bit of their classical stuff as well as some collaboration with our members.
You get a chance to perform or to rehearse with them at all, or is it all going to come together on Saturday?
It's going to be quick, but we will have one run-through. This Wednesday night is going to be our dress rehearsal, and we will be with them for a couple of hours, and then, after that, that's it. Then we go to showtime on Saturday. You
mentioned that this is an opportunity once a week to kind of escape that reality, spend some time with the choir in this beautiful, inclusive setting. What goes into preparation for a show like this, Eric?
Yeah, so we are actually one of the few choirs that, go a little beyond what you would typically expect in a choral atmosphere. We, in addition to our weekly rehearsals, we put together practice tracks. We put together as many choral resources for our artists as we can. So people are practicing at home, right? They're really putting all that they can into this. So they're able to, do our weekly rehearsals as a group, and they're also able to iron out things that they might be struggling with themselves in their own time.
Where can we take in, I know there are 2 performances on Saturday. How and where and when, how can we get our tickets?
Yeah, so there's 2 performances at Knox Presbyterian, that's in Waterloo at 50 Herb Street West. You can get tickets online at aomskw.com/events. And there's a 2 p.m. show and a 7:30 p.m. show. The 2 p.m. show is very, very limited tickets, so I expect that's going to be sold out within the next 24 to 48 hours. Still lots of availability for 7:30. Okay, so 2 and 7:30 on Saturday at Knox Presbyterian Church. AOMS for Age of Majority Singers. AOMSKW.com/events will get you to the place that you can buy some tickets. How long have you been at this now, Eric? So we've been a group since 2013. I've been with the choir since 2019, but they were founded, I guess, almost 13 years ago now. You have been involved in this area, arts, I guess I would say generally, as long as I have known you. What's it like in that space these days? It's such a fulfilling space and a really tight-knit community. The KW art scene, I would say right now, is doing better than ever. It's something where, we collaborate, we ask each other for advice. There's no competition, there's no egos. Every group that I know of in this area, we go back and forth going, hey guys, I've got this idea, I don't really know what to do. And there's always somebody going, hey, I've got an idea, and willing to collaborate and share trade secrets, if you will, right? So it's a really fun atmosphere, and everybody works towards just bringing that to our community, because we need that more than ever. Yeah, we certainly do. I love to hear it. I'm sure it's going to be a great day on Saturday. Thanks very much, Eric, for making time for our show this morning to tell us about it, and keep up the great work. Thanks so much, Mike. Great to talk to you. You as well. Bye-bye. Take care. Eric Jackson Sarkany is the co-chair of the Age of Majority Singers Choir. They've been around since 2013. Eric, who I got to know well before 2019, at least it feels that way. Time flies when you get older, I tell you that. But anyway, I've known Eric for a number of years. He's been with this choir since 2019, and I think we all recognize
the benefits that come from our participation in these things. And I don't want to diminish others. There was a great story I read this morning. Well, it was more of an op-ed, but I thought it made a very compelling argument for what is being lost at the post-secondary level, looking at McGill University and the canceling of athletics in some areas. The chance for us to socialize, build lifelong friendships, etc., on the field of play is something that's also very important. We experience those same benefits through our participation in the arts, and the Age of Majority Singers kind of bridges that gap post-high school, keeping these performers connected and together. So, specific to this conversation this morning, it is the Winter's Light concert this weekend with special guests, the Penderecki String Quartet. 2 shows will happen at Knox Presbyterian Church on Herb Street in Waterloo. 2 o'clock, that one's getting close to sold out. The 7:30 show still has availability. You will hear songs from artists that you know, like Sarah Bareilles, and how about some Gordon Lightfoot, as well as many more. Also a small set just by the string quartet itself. And if you'd like to take that in, some sounds of the season, you can do so by visiting aomskw.com/events. Tickets will be available for you right there. The Age of Majority Singers presents this weekend Winter's Light with special guests, the Penderecki String Quartet, 2 and 7:30 on Saturday at Knox Presbyterian Church in Waterloo. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, there is another concert happening, this one tomorrow, in support of domestic violence survivors in our community. We'll tell you about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There will be a performance tomorrow at Kitchener City Hall by a local choir, and all that is required from you is a free will offering. That is it. The hope is to raise some important funds for survivors of domestic violence. But let's talk more about the show itself and the choir behind it. Debbie Lou Ludolf joins us, the director of Inshallah. Debbie Lou, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you here. Always appreciate the time we get to speak with you about this wonderful group of singers. Tell us more about Inshallah.
Sure. It's hard to believe for me that we began in 2007. So we've been singing in the community since then. We began out of a trip to Israel and Palestine that Martin Luther University College, then Waterloo Lutheran Seminary, took. And on the way home, in some conversations, decided maybe we needed to sing some of the stories that we were learning there. And that started with 20 people. And now there's 120 that will be singing at Kitchener City Hall on Tuesday. And there's about 170 registered for this term. So it's been a practice of bringing the stories of the people behind the songs. And that's helped us find people in the Kitchener-Waterloo region who come from different cultures. So we sing from different cultures, different faith traditions. Yeah. And this year, we're going to sing about hope. And that's really come out of the songs we've been singing. Every song comes, usually, if you're singing about hope, it's because you're in a pretty hopeless situation and you want some hope, right? And so these songs are a combination of songs that have come from all over that see hope as a practice to here and now, to live towards making a difference in the world. And that's what the choir does every Tuesday when we come to rehearse. We open ourselves to sacred and more, and then sing these songs, see what they work in us, and then go out and try and be different in the world. That's it in a nutshell, I'd say.
I think it's so interesting that trip, almost 2 decades ago now, leads to this idea of sharing those stories, but sharing them through song, which I think is a pretty powerful medium through which to share those stories.
That's really true. That's been documented throughout history. People in South Africa singing the freedom songs, singing towards a different kind of world. People throughout the world. And so I think, there's lots of theory we could talk about, but it's not just your head, it's your whole body that gets involved in singing. And then when it's not you just by yourself, there's people there with you. So there's a sense of collective experience. And then some fabulous music that can help us both lament. We'll sing some songs like that just say, you know what, it's pretty hard out there these days. And then others that can encourage us to say, and look at the kindness that's also happening and the good things that are happening. And how can we be part of that? So yeah, it is a powerful medium. And it's great thanks to the composers and the peoples who have created these songs that we get to sing, for sure.
I think, too, that power in the music is for both performer, which you've already alluded to, the singer, and the listener. And I wonder what you experienced, Debbie Lou, when you were at Grand Valley Institution for Women recently performing there.
Oh, you're right. It was so powerful. There's a drumming circle. Maybe you've talked with Kelly Larilla, who is the song leader there, and 35 folks, residents from GVI, and then some other residents who weren't singing but were there with us, and about 50 of us went. And one of the songs we sang that many people, your listeners might know, is OCM by Susan Gluckart.
Oh, yes.
OCM, we are one family. And here we are singing together. We are one family. And it was so powerful to just get rid of all the barriers and sing together. And that without, like, in the moment of singing that song, it's also true. And when you leave the building and you're on the outside, it's also true. And so you can't forget that experience. It's an embodied experience. And it was very powerful. And we've had some debriefing times, powerful for both those inside and those of us outside. Yeah, a wonderful experience. Yeah.
So there is an opportunity for us collectively to experience Inshallah and a performance tomorrow evening at City Hall. Can you walk us through the opportunity and what we can bring to help out?
Thanks. Well, you bring your voice, because we don't just perform. We love to sing with you if you're up for it. So some of our songs are the kind that are simple and you can sing along. So we'll be singing. It'll be about an hour, 50 minutes to an hour. And it will be songs, as I said, based on hope, some Christmas songs from the season. Dr. Ahab Abdu, who is an Egyptian singer-songwriter who works at Laurier, he'll be joining us to help us lead the Arabic song called Layla Tal Milad. Footpaths Campers from Trillium, which is an after-school program of children who will be coming to sing a couple of songs with us as well. And then some soloists from within our group will also sing. The program itself will help us think about what is hope, right? Not just wishful thinking. And I hope the experience of just that hour will be hopeful for people. So, folks should come if they're feeling down about the season. Folks should come if they love music. Folks should come and support this Domestic Violence Victims Alliance, which is also an act of hope, right? There's a lot of violence going on underneath the things in our city, like that this is happening right here. So we hope that raising awareness and funds for DBVA will inspire people to be gentle and kind in our city. So it's going to be a great sing. That will be one thing. We have a wonderful band of a bass and percussion, mandolin, violin, keyboard. We are just so grateful for the band that accompanies us. Yeah.
How did the connection come about with DVVA, the Domestic Violence Victims Alliance?
Yes. I think you have interviewed Amanda Kretsch, who
Many
is its
times.
founder.
Yes.
Yes. And Amanda started to sing with us a year and a half ago. And then at the beginning, maybe in the summertime, she and I had a chat. I learned a little bit more about her story and her work. She was singing again with us. And at this particular event, singing in Kitchener City Hall, we sing other times in other places, but we like to support something that's going on right down in the city, and that will really address something locally, and maybe somebody who doesn't get funds from lots of layers of government and that kind of thing. So it came out of a conversation with Amanda, and then also this desire to support something locally that can make a difference. Yeah.
What time tomorrow, Debbie Lou, will the show start?
Yep, 6:30 at Kitchener City Hall in the atrium. It's a wonderful place to sing. It'll be a lot of fun.
It is. As long as they've got everything cleared out from Chris Kindle. My goodness, what a weekend they had down there.
Yeah, it's amazing what they do. And I just shout out to the City Hall. They're sponsoring this. It doesn't cost us a penny to be in that space. We hope that what the good that comes from it will be a return for them.
Absolutely. And anything that we can bring then by way of that goodwill offering to help support survivors of domestic violence through DVVA, we can just bring with us to the show tomorrow as we experience this beautiful performance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Welcome. Come. It'd be wonderful.
Debbie Lou, it's great to get you on the show. Thank you very much for the time and continued success with the great work you're doing with Inshallah. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Debbie Lou Ludolf joins us. She is the director of Inshallah, a great history and story shared about the sharing of stories through the music of Inshallah. And tomorrow evening, 6:30, for about an hour in the atrium at Kitchener City Hall, which has all been cleared out from the great Chris Kindle market this weekend. Inshallah will perform for us. If you have the opportunity or ability to bring with you a donation to support the Domestic Violence Victims Alliance, DVVA, here in our community, the founder of that, Amanda Kretsch, is performing now or singing with Inshallah. By all means, do that, and we'll do some good while we experience some good through the performance. Inshallah, tomorrow evening, 6:30 at Kitchener City Hall. Been talking a lot about music in this past 30 minutes, and we're going to continue that, but the bigger picture. The weekly This Week in Music History segment is coming up, and you probably know that this day is a very significant day in music history. We will begin with that and then so much more to come with Brian Allison, our musicologist, next on This Week in Music History on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Imagine there's no heaven. See as if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country.
Where else would we begin today on This Week in Music History other than right there, John Lennon's Imagine? Because imagine that it has been 45 years since the former Beatle was shot dead outside of his apartment in New York City. Brian Allison is a good friend of the program and a musicologist who joins us every Monday morning at 11 for This Week in Music History and a little trip down a musical memory lane. And if you like what you hear, you should follow along online as well. Brian has a Facebook page by that same name, This Week in Music History. Make sure you're following. Brian, good morning.
Hi, Mike.
I feel it's a somber start, but there's no other place to begin than with what happened on this day, December the 8th, back in 1980.
I still feel that pain, that sadness of John Lennon's loss. I really do. I was only 10 years old when it happened, but of course, acutely aware of who the Beatles were and what their contribution was, and it just still resonates when I think of the fact that he was shot dead at 40 years old. It was just a sad, sad story, and it's hard to believe it's been 45 years.
It really is. And, there have been many, I don't know how you approach this, but many over the years, Brian, that say the shooter should never have his name uttered. And I've heard that in other tragedies as well. Again, not sure how you feel about that in particular, but it was well known who was responsible for this. And, I mean, John Lennon at the time was really into I think, maybe the heyday of his solo career.
He really was, for sure. And yeah, I know that the Beatles themselves, the surviving Beatles, came out and said, publicly, like, we don't want people to mention his name because, one of the reasons that John was assassinated was because this person wanted to achieve a level of fame. And he did that, but the more we mention his name, the more we're feeding into that. So I try not to say his name. I will refer to him as the killer usually when I'm talking to people about John Lennon's assassination. But you're right about John's solo career. It was just starting to blossom, and I think what he might have achieved, was just lost. And sadly, we're without all of that great music.
We started the show today with Just Like Starting Over, which turned out to be the last number one released before Lennon's death. Obviously, it had come out in October of 1980 and went number one not long after that, but prior or after Lennon's passing, for sure. The other thing, and you put a piece of trivia in your notes for this week, Brian, is the album that John Lennon signed, right? Because this is how his killer approached him, asking for an autograph. Whatever happened to that?
And people forget that. Like, this person feigned being a fan, although he was a fan of John Lennon's at one point, became disenfranchised with him. But he originally had approached John for an autograph. He had a copy of his album. He was waiting outside the Dakota. John came out. He approached him and asked, could you sign my album? And he did. He signed John Lennon. He wrote 1980 on it. He looked at his eventual killer and said, is that all you wanted? And the killer said yes, and he left and went to the studio, and then it was when he came back that he was shot and killed by the same person. So what happened to that album? What a piece of memorabilia, but, at the same time, is it something people would want in their collections? Well, evidently, yes. So when the killer shot John Lennon, he had the autographed album with him, and after firing 4 shots into his back, he casually propped the album up against the Dakota building, went down and sat down on the curb, and casually waited for the police to arrive and take him into custody, which they did. When the police arrived, they took the album, which had John Lennon's signature on it, and it had the fingerprints of both the killer and John Lennon, and they marked it into crime scene or police evidence. They put crime scene stickers on it, and once it was no longer needed in court, it entered into private ownership. In 1999, that album sold for $150,000. 11 years later, in 2010, it sold again, this time for $850,000. Then it went on the auction block in 2017, was listed for $1.5 million and sold for that amount. And as late as 2020, it was offered for sale by a private owner for a cool $2 million. It's currently in private hands. It's considered the most significant and valuable piece of murderabilia. I don't like that term, but that's what people refer to it as. And it's still the album still bears the NYPD crime scene evidence stickers that were affixed to it as part of the evidence of the murder trial.
Incredible stuff. I don't love murderabilia either, but I can understand where the term would come from. And with tragic coincidence, I would say, Brian, this December the 8th is not only the day we mark the tragic end to John Lennon's life as we look at this week in music history.
Well, and again, December 8th, 2 other major music figures also met untimely deaths on the same date. In 1984, we have the death of Razzle Dingley, who was a member of Hanoi Rocks. He was in the car accident that Motley Crue singer Vince Neil caused due to DUI, and he died on this day. He was the only passenger with Vince Neil on that day. Vince crashed his car on a booze run, and Razzle was killed. And that's sometimes forgotten in the shadow of John Lennon's death. We also have the tragic death on December 8th of Dimebag Darrell, the former guitarist for Pantera and Damage Plan, who was literally assassinated on stage while performing at a nightclub in Columbus, Ohio by a deranged fan. So three really significant figures in rock and roll history all met their untimely death on December 8th. Also, though, we should mention, on a happier note, December 8th is also the birth date of a lot of really significant musical figures. Sammy Davis Jr., born December 8th. Jim Morrison of The Doors. Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers Band. Dan Hartman, who had hits throughout the 80s. Warren Cucurullo from Duran Duran, born on December 8th. Phil Collin of Def Leppard. Paul Rutherford of Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Marty Friedman of Megadeth. Sinead O'Connor, born in 1966 on December 8th. Corey Taylor from Slipknot, and Nicki Minaj, born in 1982, also on December 8th. So it's really a big day for remembering those who passed and some births as well.
Absolutely. A significant day in music history is this December the 8th. Every Monday morning at this time, we look at this week in music history, not just this day, but it's such a significant day. Brian Allison, our good friend and musicologist, joins us for this segment every Monday morning. And there was this week in music history characters from a children's television show that went number one with one of their songs in the UK. We'll tell you about that and more as we continue our trip down a musical memory lane. This week in music history, every Monday at this time on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Monday mornings, 11 a.m., we are joined by good friend and musicologist Brian Allison, who helps us on this little trip down memory lane with This Week in Music History. Don't forget the Facebook page of the same name. You'll get all of these tidbits and then some on Facebook at This Week in Music History. Brian, we were talking in that first segment about the significance of December the 8th, and it's got a rather tragic significance to it, including the death of Daryl Dimebag Abbott, assassinated on stage. But he was buried by request in a Kiss casket. And Kiss also factors into This Week in Music History back in 1976 when Ace Frehley had a near-death experience.
Yeah, the recently departed Ace Frehley. So, yeah, it was December the 12th, 1976, when Kiss was playing a show in Lakeland, Florida. And at the start of the show, Ace came down a staircase that was part of the stage props, put his hand on a railing that was not grounded and was nearly electrocuted. He hit the ground and was unconscious for several minutes. They revived him, but he had some significant second-degree burns to his fingers. And they took him backstage and gave him some assistance. And within 30 minutes, he came back and finished the show. And the experience would become an inspiration for his signature song, which was called appropriately Shock Me. So Shock Me was recorded on the Love Gun album in 1978. And, it became sort of his signature piece, the one where he would sing during the show, do a giant guitar solo. So, that event of being electrocuted on stage became money in his pocket in terms of a hit single.
A couple of things that are significant on This Week in 1967. I'm sure inspired by the Toronto Maple Leafs' last Stanley Cup win in the spring, but December the 9th, 1967 was a big day for the Doors.
Yeah, I never put that together. It was the same way that the Leafs won.
They won't let me forget, Brian.
No, I know. It's kind of marred in our memory for sure. Yeah, this was an interesting event. So the Doors were appearing in New Haven at the New Haven Arena. And before the show, singer Jim Morrison was backstage. He was apparently in a private area, but he was making out with an 18-year-old girl who was known to him. And a policeman approached him and was sort of like, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to be back here." And he's like, "I'm in the band." There was an argument between him and the policeman, and the guy maced him. So he's upset about this. Once he's on stage, he starts to tell the story to this crowd in sort of an effort to rile them up. And the police were having none of it. They walked onto stage, and they arrested him in the middle of his performance. So it was literally the first time that a rock star was arrested on stage during a performance, and he was dragged off to jail. And the people in the crowd rioted, and there were demonstrations outside the police station and more arrests, and it was a big mess. So, yeah, Jim Morrison became infamous in 1967 for being arrested after being maced by a police officer.
Who would like being maced? I can understand why the guy's upset by that.
Well, it seemed excessive. You know, he really wasn't doing anything. He was with a girl who was known to him. She wasn't a minor. I mean, I don't know how you don't recognize Jim Morrison if you're doing police duty at a Doors concert. You'd think you'd know who the lead singer of the band might be. So why this guy would mace him is kind of, never really been determined.
That's a great point. Okay, also on This Week in 1967, hello to the Apple Boutique.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, well, hello and goodbye very quickly. So this is kind of the Beatles, well, in the period where they're sort of spinning their wheels and trying to figure out how to make an empire out of, the Beatles. So they opened, they started Apple, which was a record label. It was a film production company. It was a publishing company. Well, we should have a store, too. So they opened the Apple Boutique, which was at 94 Baker Street in London. Sold, fashionable hippie clothes and items and things like that. It never did very well in terms of making any kind of profit. A lot of people were just sort of taking items that worked for the business and, taking them home for free. And then they had this amazing mural, if you ever get a chance to Google it. A fashion design collective called The Fool had created this mural on the side of the building. It was very colorful, hippie design, very cool looking, but the people and businesses around, Baker Street in London didn't like it and looked down on it and said, oh, it's an eyesore, and they didn't get permission to paint it on this building, so they eventually had to paint over it in white to get rid of it. But the store eventually closed just 7 months later, and they gave away everything in the store, sent out an announcement and said, okay, we're closing the store tomorrow. Everybody can come down and you can take one thing for free. And that's how the store was closed.
I can only imagine the run on the store when everybody gets one item for free.
The sad part was that most of the Beatles have said, like, anybody that was on the inside, anybody working for Apple at that point, they went down the night before and took all the good stuff. So by the time the store opened the next morning, there was just sort of not much left anyway.
Slim pickings.
Yep.
Okay, this week in very recent music history, just going back to 2023, and if we're in recent music history, it's got to do with the biggest star on the planet, right?
Oh, Tay-Tay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so on December 11th, 2023, Polestar, they determined that the Taylor Swift's Eras Tour was the first to gross over $1 billion. $1 billion for a tour. Like, that's just an incredible thing. And she hit the mark within 60 shows. So it only took her 60 shows to net $1 billion in income on the Eras Tour. Incredible. It eventually would earn almost $2 billion, $1.9 billion for that tour. The previous record holder was Elton John for his Farwell Yellow Brick Road tour, but that tour lasted 5 years. It started in 2018 and finished in 2023. There was some breaks in there for COVID, and he grossed about $939 million. So didn't make $1 billion. Certainly didn't make it in 60 shows. Never got close to $1.9 billion. So, yeah, the draw power of Taylor Swift is just something to behold.
It certainly is. And this one, I couldn't help but chuckle because I get, one person's hit is another person's, let's just put an S on the front of that word, if you get my meaning. I can't understand This Week in 1997, but here we are with a Teletubbies --
Yep, in the UK. I remember this very, very well because my kids were in the Teletubby era, and that show played endlessly in our home. I think we had a couple of videotapes that just were constantly on the go, and kids programming can sometimes be the worst kind of an earworm. But yeah, it was the Teletubbies on December 13th, 1997 that went to number one in the UK with a song called Say A-O. So you've got the characters of Tinky Winky, Lala, Dipsy, and Poe, and they put out this song, which was basically a Teletubbies song, and it sold 547,000 copies in the first 2 weeks and would eventually sell over 1 million copies and spend 41 weeks on the chart. So, I mean, who would have thought? I never would have thought a children's show would enter the hit parade in the UK, but it did so in 1997. It happened.
It did. unfortunately for us all these years later, but that's the way it works sometimes. Brian, it's always fun doing this. Thank you, as always, for making the time for the show.
You bet, Mike. We'll talk to you next week.
Look forward to it. Bye-bye.
You bet. Okay, bye.
Brian Allison is our good friend and musicologist who joins us every Monday morning at 11 o'clock for This Week in Music History. He's got a Facebook page of the same name, so you'll get all of these tidbits and then some right there on Facebook, This Week in Music History. It's on the show every Monday at 11. It's on Facebook, This Week in Music History, with our good friend, Brian Allison. And of course, this is one of the most significant days in music history because it was the day that John Lennon was shot dead outside his New York City apartment building. If you missed it earlier today on the show, I mentioned it near the beginning. Our jackpot in the 570 News Radio Tree of Hope 50-50 raffle is approaching $51,000, which is a whole bunch of fun. It's a whole bunch of fun for you to think about having that kind of money, and it's even better because this is supporting Family and Children's Services Foundation here in Waterloo Region. So we're making the holidays warmer and brighter for families in our community. So I thought, what could we do to maybe incentivize a few more purchases of those raffle tickets? And I thought, this is what I might be able to come up with. Because the calendar has turned to December, Christmas is coming, and that means I'm getting the annual inundation. And that's what it is. Every day there's another message, including one yesterday my beloved posted on Instagram. Believing in her deluded ways. I mean, she cheers for the wrong hockey team, and she thinks Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I know it's not. I've long grown weary of this argument because it's absolutely 100% not a Christmas movie. But because so many of you seem to insist that it is, I've thought, okay, what if this jackpot makes it to $60,000? $60,000 for you, $60,000 for Family and Children's Services Foundation. If the jackpot can make it that high, I will join you on your Die Hard is a Christmas movie parade. And I'll admit it live on the air, but only if the jackpot makes it to $60,000. It doesn't get there, forget about it. I am stubborn as the day is long, you know this, and I will remain that way. But if the jackpot makes it to $60,000, I'll join you on the air and admit it grudgingly. Get your tickets anytime. FACS5050.com. We've got an early bird prize to be drawn this Friday, thanks to our friends at Hefner Lexus Toyota. $2,500 in cold, hard cash. So there's that. And if you get the jackpot to $60K, fine, I'll admit it. This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? I haven't seen hide nor shaggy head of that boy in 4 years. But you'd know him if you met him. Played harmonica like the cat lost his balls. Yep, Crazy Dave. Had a toothy smile as big as my hand. Always chewed on a toothpick or a long blade of grass, drank from the bottle, rolled the worst cigarettes, was impervious to insect bites. It's one of the best damn tree-planting highballers east of Prince George.
That is our good friend David Drewe, and that performance, spoken word by Scott Wicken, is not about David Drewe, but for some way, somehow, it always just seems appropriate. David is a former Conservative Party staffer. He now operates negotiating change, government relations, and stakeholder engagement strategies. And he joins us every Wednesday morning, or Monday morning. I'm moving ahead already. I'm trying to work ahead for the Wednesday
Mixing
show.
me up with Rob Deutschman?
No, I'm moving ahead to the Wednesday show already. And
you're not here on Wednesday, you said.
I know, but I have to do the show from the road, so I'm thinking of Wednesday. Yeah, this is what happens, David. I should not multitask. I'm too old for it.
For those who are listening, you can't see Mike's eyes, but they do look a little. He looks a little weary. Let's say
a little bit. David joins us Monday mornings at 11:30. For Drew's Views. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, and thank you for putting up with me.
Mutual, baby. Mutual.
Are we done? You want more? I think I was happy to not have to put up with this guy, at least in cabinet anymore. But your notes to me say, we need more Guilbeault.
Yes.
Do we, though?
In those one sense of, over the past week, we have seen one of the classiest exits from cabinet. I think Michael Chong I'd go back to. But even in that case, I think there was a bit more of a red line drawn between him and the Conservative Party of Canada at that point than Stephen Guilbeault right now. I don't know where I would go back to where you have a cabinet member resigning on a matter of principle without taking the pound of flesh on the way out and just saying, I lost that battle, so I couldn't defend this motion or this memorandum of understanding, so I resigned from cabinet. And last week I think I phrased it that he was hanging around so he could be a wrench in the works, so to speak. But he basically says the same thing, but only putting the charitable spin on it, where it's like, I can have the most impact by staying in caucus. And you listen to him talk, and it's classy. And you hear the caucus reaction to him leaving cabinet, and they were like, oh, he's such a great guy. I'm so glad he's staying in caucus. And I can't recall any of that either. You know, we need more of this little just classy disagreement, because we need to have politicians who can disagree with each other in public. And I'll go back to the Chrétien era. Well, you had the Chrétien era, and you had John Manley, and you had Lloyd Axworthy, and you knew the difference in their politics. And it's very hard with cabinets nowadays to see where are the different schools of thoughts? Where are the divergences occurring? You know, Paul Martin wants to cut spending, and Brian Tobin has his high-speed internet project. That was a major debate in cabinet. We understood the different schools of thought. We can't have that anymore now because all disagreement is horrible, but we now have this example of Stephen Guilbeault going out in a way that was classy and worked, and I'd just love to see a little bit more of that.
I can get behind that idea for sure, that analysis of it. Okay, let me tie it in this way. Stephen Guilbeault is a Quebec MP. In Quebec, there's all kinds of talk around religious freedom. Bill C-9, is that going to impede my religious freedom? What can you tell us?
Okay, I said it in the notes. I really know nothing about it except from social media.
Well, then you're in trouble, pal.
Well, but I think actually this is very informative and illuminating what I'm hearing. I'm hearing conservatives saying that this is going to take away my right to quote the Bible. And I have friends on the left who are saying the Liberals want to accomplish X with it, and the Conservatives are in there with it because they want to make it illegal to express support for Palestine. What do I know about it? Everybody seems to be worried it's a little bit of overreach. It's just being positioned as overreach. And is this one of those cases where everybody's against a good thing? Or is this a case of everybody's worried about how somebody else is going to use it potentially? So I now know what it is I'm curious about with this bill. It is, where is the overreach, and what are these, like, where is the line? They say I can't quote the Bible. Well, I'm pretty sure in some instances there are some lines from the Bible that I really shouldn't be quoting in public anyway. I might do it anyway just for shock value, but I can understand that there might be some homophobic statement in the Old Testament. I can understand that there are, but, you know, is it a reasonable accommodation? You know, the Charter, they say, you know, you have all these rights, except as reasonable.
Context matters here, though.
Yes.
I get your point 100% on the homophobic statements that could be used to your advantage in an argument or making a case about something that, whatever. But
well, yeah, if you are not a homophobe, you must hate God. Like, it's just so easy to end an argument that way.
Sure.
And
but there cannot be any provision under legislation that prevents me from simply speaking out loud a passage in the Bible or any other book.
Why?
Well, because I have this thing called freedom of expression.
But remember, when you look at the Charter, it doesn't say you have unfettered freedom of expression. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater.
Sure.
So
I can't read a book in public?
Well, you read it out loud.
Again, I'm sorry. Okay,
yeah.
Fine. If you want to go down that path, then everybody on the LRT right now on speakerphone, you're getting arrested. Please and thank you.
Fair.
Because that's out loud.
Well, no, That's just it. Like, both sides are concerned about the overreach. Now, is there overreach on this? I have no idea. But but this is always how I look at it. When Pierre Poilievre says this is what the law should be, I'm like, yeah, now imagine Justin Trudeau using it. Or when Justin Trudeau was changing the laws, I'm like, wait a minute. So eventually you're going to lose. And let's say it's Pierre Poilievre, or I think at the time it was Andrew Scheer, and he's the one naming the members of the Debates Commission. Is this really what you want? Like, you always have to look at it with the shoe on the other foot. And what I see are both sides here saying this can go to extremes. Now, is it legit that this can go to extremes? Or is this people of, and I'm not calling out my friends who have shared this on either side of the argument, but there are organized stakeholder groups who have an interest in one side or the other of this argument, and they can oversimplify things.
I hate it when you make me think so much on this segment, David. I really do. I came here to not think today. I wanted you to do the thinking for me. I thought I understood what wedge politics were, especially during a campaign. You pick the wedge issue, you assign it to the other party, you win because they trip over themselves trying to step over the wedge.
What is the wedge issue?
Abortion.
No. I don't mean it that way. I mean, what makes an issue a wedge issue?
What makes the issue the wedge issue? Because it gets stuck onto the other team.
Kind of. It's a way of slicing up the voter pie in a way that is more favorable to you. So, what Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are doing this week is asking the House of Commons to vote on the memorandum of understanding that Mark Carney and Danielle Smith signed.
Wait a minute. Isn't Pierre Poilievre an Alberta MP now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure every Conservative member is going to vote in favor of it. The question is how many Liberals won't. Will Stephen Guilbeault vote in favor of it? Will the two MPs from British Columbia who've come out saying Mark Carney has some explaining to do vote in favor of this memorandum of understanding? That's what this is about. It's, okay, the other team isn't united on this. Let's throw the hand grenade in the kitchen and see how they react. That is wedge politics. And it's really like, this is one of those ones because I'm in favor of the memorandum of understanding. So if it was reversed and it was the hand grenade going into the Conservatives' kitchen because it looked like they were going to be torn up on this, I'd be giggling just as much. It's harder when you're on the other side of the wedge. Like if I was a radical environmentalist, I shouldn't say radical, that's demonizing. If I was an environmentalist and I was against the MOU because it expands oil production, then I might look at this as horrible, nasty wedge politics because they're forcing us to. But it always feels like that way when you're on the wrong side of the wedge. But this is basically, do you support your prime minister? But apparently this did not go to cabinet before. Otherwise, Stephen Guilbeault would not have been caught off guard. It definitely didn't go to caucus. So it's really going to be interesting to see. And if Mark Carney does get unanimous support from his caucus, that's going to be some capital burned in some way. And it's going to be interesting to see what it takes.
Why do you support the Memorandum of Understanding? Don't you like Canada? I say that deliberately, but...
Oh, you liberal, you. Okay, we can't leave money on the table. It's just that simple. We are so dependent on the U.S. as our market. I've been arguing for pipelines for more than a decade now. For much longer than that, actually. We need more and more. But with Donald Trump showing how vulnerable we are with our dependence on the U.S. as a market, everybody sees it as common sense now, pretty much. And even environmentalists are trying to take a bit of a different tack in how they are tackling these things as opposed to the we don't need it anymore.
For the record, I am with you in my support of the MOU, but some of the saber-rattling...
But do you love Canada, Mike? That's the real question the listeners want to know.
I find the saber-rattling of placating Alberta at perhaps the expense of Quebec to be very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yes.
We now have Dave Eby sitting down with the leader of the Bloc Québécois.
And as politics makes for strange bedfellows, doesn't it?
I would love to be a fly on the wall for that. I could picture David Eby just cracking up laughing at the Bloc Québécois guy. He's just so blunt sometimes.
David, Drewe, and I love Canada. Also, it's Monday morning when David joins us as we continue Drew's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show with Hughes on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. David Drewe joins us Monday mornings at 11:30 for Drew's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show. David is a former Conservative Party staffer, having served with Harold Albrecht, the former MP for Kitchener-Conestoga. David now operates Negotiating Change, Government Relations and Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. One of my favorite sayings, David, I use it probably too much, the devil is in the details. So do share with me the details that are contained in the Budget Implementation Act.
634-page omnibus bill C-15, the Budget Implementation Act, contains apparently it's giving ministers the power to exempt any individual or company from any federal law on the books, except for the criminal code, for up to 6 years. So that environmental check we needed to do before by law, well, now you're exempt. That safety check on airplanes? Who cares? That, theoretical. That's how crazy it gets, but it doesn't seem like there's any checks or balances. And that's where it gets weird.
That's incredibly weird. And don't even get me started on omnibus bills, which have always bothered me.
You're off the omnibus?
Who, what now? I am. I'm off. I've been off the omnibus since Stephen Harper's days. Let's be honest here.
Off the omnibus bus.
Yes. Okay. The bus. Okay. But you are being theoretical here for effect.
Well, it's hard to say much more about it because you have the legal language in the bill, but this was not mentioned in the budget that this bill is supposedly implementing. It wasn't mentioned in any of the budget speeches. So it is really hard to say what are the theoretical limits on this. And the government says they're trying to create the ability to create sandboxes of regulations. For example, when drones came along, we didn't have any rules on pilotless planes. So they created this, rather than creating rules, they created this umbrella exemption so they could do it and figure out along the way how to build the rules. And so they're just sort of saying, this is for everything. But the question is, well, if we were able to do that for drones, do we really need to have something this blanket for everything? And again, Pierre Poilievre, for all our liberal listeners out there, if Pierre Poilievre wins the next election, what do you picture his ministers allowing to be exempted from the laws and encouraging development or their goals? This whole thing, it's kind of spooky. Like, don't get me wrong, I could be in favor of it. But this is a rather radically anti-democratic way to go about lessening democracy. This should be a standalone bill on its own because the idea of, hey, the legislature has passed laws, but now we are just en masse, without any checks or balances, saying, except whenever one of you guys in the Star Chamber says 6 years off. I could be in favor of it. I think I would want more detail on how it could be used. I would want reviews, etc. Something so that Parliament can sit there and figure out if it was being used appropriately. But all of that requires debate, and you can't have that as one clause in a 634-page bill and expect that to be treated with the scrutiny it needs.
In order for Pierre Poilievre to be the next prime minister, he has to survive his leadership review in January. I'll just put that little stumbling block in the way again.
They always survive the leadership review. The question is, was caucus going to be happy with that decision?
Okay. I'll just leave that there, just as a little aside, because I want to really get into this next story that you have on your list. I'm fascinated by the whole Algoma situation. A third of the workforce, 1,000 people laid off. I'm headed to the Sioux this week. I'm really interested to get a sense of the community while I'm there. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford says, listen, we're not taking our money back that we offered $100 million because we did it to support the workers while they're there, and we continue to do that. But the backstory to this, David, where federal initiative and funding for the upgrades, et cetera, at Algoma Steel basically made these layoffs inevitable. I'm fascinated by all of it.
The other side of it is, if the federal government hadn't provided those upgrades, would these be layoffs or would they be permanent fires? Like the electric arc furnace is what's going to keep that plant going for the next 50 years.
Sure. But it just doesn't require as much people power, person power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not competitive with the old technology. So the governments came in and gave them a bailout, let's call it. And then Algoma went ahead and laid a pile of people off. And we got much gobbledygook from the government. And then eventually, I think it was the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie who first confirmed, or maybe it was the CEO of Algoma, but confirmed, no, the government, not to pick on the feds or the province, both knew that layoffs were coming and understood the scale of what was coming when the monies were granted. And at that point, the government started to provide some realistic answers. It's like, yeah, this is not ideal, but if we hadn't provided the support we did, it would have not been layoffs. They would not have made it to next year for the opening of the arc furnace. It makes sense. But we know that Donald Trump is already talking about tearing up CUSMA. And we could be looking at 1,000 Sault Ste. Maries across this country. And I do not know how much support there is going to be for the kind of investments we need to prevent scarring if the government keeps saying we're doing this to save jobs rather than to save some of your jobs, to save the furniture. The fact that it took them a week and a half to come out with what is actually a really, really sensible argument that makes total sense and actually seems honest, that's a problem, because we're going to have a lot more of these and they're going to need to get to the truth faster. It's going to hurt. We are doing what we can. But that old technology over there, I'm sorry, it just costs way too much. We can't subsidize to that level. But what we can do is make sure that there is an industry in steel industry in Canada, in Sault Ste. Marie, for the long term. It's not a good answer, but it's an honest one and it's the best one. And if you don't start providing the honest ones, by the time the fifth decision comes along, that community is not going to have support because they're not going to believe that their job is going to be saved.
All right. Literally 30 seconds is all I've got left. Elizabeth May is never going to support the Liberals again, or...
Well, last Monday we talked about her a little bit, and then that afternoon I shared the news link with you where she said, was it not never again, was a mistake and it won't happen again. Sorry, yeah. And then this week on that same network, CTV, well, maybe, never say never. Okay, first of all, stop changing your mind so much. Second of all, why does CTV give this woman 8 minutes of a 1 hour show? On a 1 hour show, how much airtime is that, Mike?
About a quarter of it. Yeah. Taking commercials into account.
Yeah. Like, why? Elizabeth May getting up to say, well, never say never. After last week I said, can't trust these people. It's a vanity exercise. Why are they engaging in it? Was it really that hard to get a guest that was good?
She was easy fodder. Yes.
Bingo.
Enjoy your chats always, sir. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me again.
Monday mornings, 11:30, Drew's Views with David Drewe on the Mike Farwell Show.
Farwell.
Bleary-eyed Farwell. Has one more hour to go. Rant or Rave is next on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The papers and the trash. Or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight. Or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
I wanted to start today with an email from Anne Farwell's Force member number 7, officially, who sends an email to Mike at 570news.com in memory of official Farwell's Force member number 3, Paul from Preston. Not to be confused with Preston Paul, but Paul from Preston, who has been a mainstay on this radio station for decades. Paul from Preston may as well have been a host himself on this show. That's the kind of character he was. That's the kind of impression he left. And Anne's email to Mike at 570news.com. Not long after the beginning of the show today, when I paid a little tribute to Paul from Preston, Anne's email says, "Hello, Mike. So sorry to hear of Paul from Preston's passing. I was also thinking that he had not been on the radio lately. I thought perhaps he had given himself a timeout, as he had done in the past, or gone up to the bush, far from a signal to connect. It doesn't seem too long ago that he had been off on a bush trip. I wonder when he last called your show. Most of his opinions were completely opposite to mine, but he was entertaining and had a way of expressing himself that was ideal for your program. It was touching when every year he would wish his grandchildren a happy birthday. You could hear the love in his voice. I, like other listeners, will surely miss Paul's unique perspective and his ways of expressing it. No one could criticize the former PM and Liberal Party like Paul. Is there any way you could do a memorial segment? I appreciate what you said this morning, but to hear some of Paul's quotes would be a nice tribute. As Mary said, he was a character." So there you go. And I mean, listen, we can only go so far. Paul's life story is not mine necessarily to share, but as you can hear from Anne's email, she knew the character that Paul was. He was as well known to you as any host on this show. And every time you'd pick up the phone, you'd get the, "How you doing?" from Paul from Preston. And, of course, Annie also remembers this classic, and we have it saved, recorded forevermore, and I think we'll still pull it out from time to time.
This whole amalgamation thing sucks.
One of Paul's calls as he was making his way probably to the bush on that particular day. We remember him fondly as we lost him this weekend. It is your Talkback Hour, and on Mondays, that leaves room for your rants and or raves. You rant because you're upset about something. You rave because you're happy about it. You do either of those things with one phone call to 519-570. 2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. We're going to start off today with Farwell's Force official member number 12, Jersey Bill. Good afternoon.
Yes, and as somebody who's been listening for about a decade and have heard the different quirky characters, it's always sad to see the passing of one, but it's nice to pay tribute to him, and I hope my quirkiness also helps the program somewhat.
It certainly does, Billy. It certainly does.
So the first thing I remember, it wasn't the answer you wanted, but I called you about your not $1 million question the other, I guess last Friday, and it was I quoted actually where it came from in the Bible, which is Ecclesiastes. I was off by one chapter. It wasn't it wasn't the beginning of the second chapter; it's the beginning of the third chapter, and actually, and they pretty much went line by line, but. Verse 7 is a time, it's verse 8, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. And then they added, the only words they added to the whole lyrics was, I hope it's not too late, which was very appropriate because I believe that song came out in toward the end of the Vietnam War, and people, of course, very concerned about that ongoing war. So it wasn't exactly a peace protest song, but it had that element to it.
Billy, appreciate the clarification on the biblical passage in question. If you missed the show Friday, let me bring you up to speed on all of the background there. We started the show with the Birds and Turn, Turn, Turn. And to everything there is a season, turn, turn, turn goes the song, roughly. I'm never good with lyrics, but that's generally the sense of it. And Billy had called in and made reference to the biblical passage from which the song's lyrics were emerged from. And so we talked about that. And our not $1 million question on Friday was, 12% of people lie about this to impress other people. And the answer was their taste in music. 12% of us would lie about our taste in music in order to impress someone else. So that brings you all the background on Billy's call to start Rant or Rave today. Next, we go to Dave, Farwell's Force, member number 47. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I want to give a big rant for a change, but before I start, I just want to say you have some real good, excellent email writers to the show. That email writer, Anne, I think you said her name was.
It was indeed.
That was a tremendous email, and I'm constantly amazed at the number of email writers to your show that you have. They're well written and well documented. But now I'd like to give a big rant for a change.
I'm all ears.
I would like this day to rant against a segment of our population, especially those who live in Cambridge, who insist vocally and loudly they are not card-carrying members of NIMBYism. And yet they go out of their way, screaming and hollering and letter writing and voicing all the attributes and positive nature that they think that belong to NIMBYism. But they insist they are not card-carrying members of that NIMBYism organization. Have a great day.
Well, hang on a second, Dave. Are you talking about the Preston Springs development or just in general? Is there anything specific that brought this up?
No, just in general.
Okay.
Just in general, but that was part of it that popped up in my mind that I said, I got to voice it because it's not just that, it's a number of issues. So it's just in general.
I appreciate the call, Dave. Thank you. Enjoy your day. So, listen, I've never met a NIMBY who believes themselves to be a NIMBY. I think that's a name that we usually assign to others when they are arguing against a building in their backyard, a development in their backyard. NIMBY being for not in my backyard. And NIMBYism does get in the way of many a development. Almost every time something is proposed, there are people living nearby who say this isn't going to work. It's not going to fit the character of the current neighborhood. And one of those instances, and we talked about it on the show earlier today, the 3 condominium towers that will go where the Preston Springs Hotel once stood. 635 units at what is already a very congested area of the city. How will we all manage when that is completed? When will it start? We also don't know the answer to that. But where there's a new development, there is often a NIMBY or two. Preston Paul, Farwell's Force, member number 45, not to be confused with Paul from Preston. Good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon, Mike. I was a little sad to hear the news about Paul from Preston. He was the one that really gave me the encouragement to call in when I was listening at the beginning of the year when I changed over to radio stations. And I just loved the way he came at you and voiced his opinion, and just thought that was, really good, even though what he might say might rub people the wrong way. At least he voiced his opinion, and he was dedicated to it.
Yeah, he really was. And I like what you said about came at me, because Paul and I had a bumpy start to our relationship. But over the years, because he was as persistent as he was, we even ended up getting together outside of work and shared the occasional meal together. That doesn't happen with every listener for sure, but it happened with Paul, and really came to appreciate him as a real member of this show.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping to meet him. That was my goal, because I knew he lived down on Concession Road area, and I'm not too far from there, so I was hoping to run into him one day. So I'll have to do it on the other side, I guess. Absolutely.
But we'll let you continue carrying the torch for Preston.
You got her.
Sounds good, Paul. Thanks for the call, buddy.
You're welcome.
All right, enjoy your day. Good to hear from Preston Paul, Farwell's Force member number 45, in memory of Paul from Preston, one of the original cast, Farwell's Force member number 3 here on the show. Double O George, Farwell's Force member number 00, like Clark Griswold. Hello.
Mike, how you doing there?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Three very quick things. I'm very sad to hear about Paul dying. I was hoping also to meet him one day. I had reached out to him on Facebook, and we became friends. So very sad to hear that he's passed. Another thing, the second one is, I don't know how much room there would be there, Mike, for 3 towers to go on that little space where the Preston Springs Hotel was.
I think that the hill makes it deceiving, George. That's my sense, because obviously planners and developers know better than I, but I think that hill just makes it deceiving when we look at it to see how much of a footprint there actually is, I suppose. But these towers were approved by city staff as well, so they think it'll work.
Okay, I guess we'll have to see it one day. And the third thing is, it was on this night 45 years ago, my brother woke me up to tell me that, what was his name? Cosell?
Howard Cosell?
Howard Cosell had just announced, I think he was one of the first to announce about John Lennon being shot.
Wow, I did not recall that at all.
Because my brother was a huge NFL fan. I was already in bed. He was watching Monday Night Football, and he actually woke me up to tell me that John Lennon has been shot. Yeah,
I'll be darned. That's really interesting. And what a day in music history, eh?
Sure. It didn't really impact me that much that night, but then surely after that, wow, everybody was deeply affected, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. George, appreciate the call today. This is Howard Cosell. I have fond memories of listening to him as a young man, Monday Night Football and elsewhere. And for George, that's where he got the news that John Lennon had been shot this day 45 years ago. We continue with Rant or Rave. It's a Monday tradition here on the program, and it carries on. Bring your rants, bring your raves with a phone call to us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every day from noon until 1, we open the phone lines for the opportunity for you to call in and let us know about the issues of the day, or the issue you'd like to make the issue of the day. On Mondays, in keeping with tradition here on the station, it is your Rant or Rave hour. Rant because you're upset, rave because you're happy. It's a sunny day. It's cold as HE double hockey sticks out there, as far as I'm concerned. But it's nice and sunny, which is a good switch. Back to the phones for more ranting and or raving. Shane is next. Hello, Shane.
228 reporting for duty, sir.
Farwell's
number right this time, too.
Attaboy. Farwell's Force official member number 228. Good to hear from you.
So I have both a rant and a rave.
Okay.
First off, my rave. My rave is for me, only because I was sitting the other night watching the Leafs against the team that shall not be named, and of course, the better team won. So here's a big bag of salt to kind of rub into that wound there, sir, just a little bit. Anyway, moving on from that. City News reported that there was an article Friday, I believe it was, regarding all the collisions lately on our favorite stretch of highway between Kitchener and North Dumfries. And the OPP stood there saying, we don't know why this is happening, but we're going to blame it on the weather. You can't blame it on the weather because drivers need to adapt to the weather changes out here. Me being a truck driver now between Kitchener and the big city of London every day, I make 4 to 5 trips a day up and down that 401, and I can suggest one very large thing. The OPP need to pull their fingers out of certain body parts and get out there and actually patrol the highway between Kitchener and London. Because I'll tell you, during the day, I see maybe one cruiser a day, and yet I do see trucks constantly flying down the center of the highway, and they shouldn't be in the middle lane. Truck drivers out there need to be in the right-hand lane, allowing cars to continue to pass down the highway, and maybe we wouldn't have these traffic jams. Maybe we wouldn't wind up having so many accidents. So everybody needs to wake up and learn to drive. You enjoy your day, Mike.
Thanks, Shane. You too. Excellent usage of the team that shall not be named, even by a fan of said team, because that's an instant no-no on this show. You know the rules. We had a one-day exemption from that, but that day is long gone. Just what Shane was mentioning and talking about driving to London reminds me of this. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. We were in London with the Rangers last week. This was in the city, I'll grant you, but the principle applies because this was a person sitting in their vehicle playing a video game. You see, being in the bus with the hockey team is kind of like being on a motorcycle. I ride motorcycle, and when you're passing another vehicle, it's pretty easy to see the entire of the interior of their vehicle and what they're doing, things that they're doing as opposed to paying attention to the road. You can see where their eyes are. And we witnessed that very thing on the streets of London, looking out the bus window down into the vehicle next to us. And the driver of that vehicle was playing a video game while at the wheel of a car. I ask you this, my friend. Why is any electronic device even usable inside a car? Why have we not yet created the technology? I'm sure the technology exists that jams the cell phone, the whatever, from being useful in the vehicle, except, of course, for emergency phone calls, not emergency texts, not emergency video games, not emergency movies. You know where I'm going with this. I cannot understand why the ding-dang phones even work in the car, save for emergencies, because this is the behavior we've got. And I can't even comprehend how much you have to love a video game to not be able to drive without playing it. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, I'll leave it there for you to think about. Robert is with us on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Robert.
Oh, good afternoon, Mike. I was just at a doctor's appointment. I just came out and turned the radio on, so I missed the first bit, but I just heard that Paul from Preston had passed.
He has, yes.
That kind of really bums me out. I've been listening to this station since Jeff Allen was a regular host, and currently my two favorite regulars were Paul from Preston and Mary. They're just both very entertaining callers. But Paul specifically, he always had that like really kind of cool, grumpy old man vibe, and I always kind of looked up to that. I was like, I hope I'm that grumpy when I get, to that age. So he always kind of made me smile because he'd kind of go on and on about in great detail about these little things that were bothering him, and I kind of just really appreciated his grumpy level. So definitely going to miss hearing from him. And I guess I'd like to tell him, if the government ever bans any of my firearms, I will not surrender them in his honor.
Bravo, Robert. Bravo.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. What a great way to sum it up. Regulars like Paul and Mary and so many more of you are what make shows like this work. Robert said it goes back to the Jeff Allen days. And I don't want to diminish the impact or abilities of any of my predecessors, but I've never believed it's about the host. The cast of characters that become regulars, they're like family, and you come to know them as listeners, even if you're just a passive listener that doesn't participate in the show, which is fine. Like, you don't have to call, you don't have to email if you don't want to. You can just listen in on the various opinions, and that's what many do. But characters like Paul, like Mary, who called before too, expressing her sorrow for the loss of Paul, they make a show like this go around. We're like a big family. We're like a big bunch of co-hosts. And yeah, you miss them when they're gone. And I love Robert's take on, I hope I can be as grumpy as Paul someday. Because you know why he comes across and sounds grumpy? Because he cares. He still cared up until the end. And that's why you complain, to hope you can make something better. We'll get you an update from the 570 News Center and continue ranting and or raving on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, your Talkback Hour is set aside for your rants and or raves. You rant because you're upset about something. You rave because you're not upset about it. Sing someone's or something's praises, if you so choose. 519-570-2545. star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Pat is next. Good afternoon, Pat.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. I hope you had a nice weekend.
You know what? I did. Thank you. How was yours?
That was great, actually. It's always nice spending time with the family, and so when you have a chance to just not do much and just spend time with the family, it's always nice.
That's what we did on Saturday. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, good. The reason why I'm calling in is because I just wanted to highlight it's a personal concern of mine. I don't know if anybody else shares it, but certain aspects of Bill C-9. There's been a lot of conversation around this bill, and the area of concern around this bill that kind of brought it on my radar is removing certain religious exemptions around hate speech laws. And as you know, I've called into your show before, and I kind of have an eye on what's going on in Europe. And we're in this environment where we're forging new trade relationships with other parts of the world, Europe being one of them. And my concern stems from the fact that as we forge these new alliances, some of the social influences will rub off on us. And if you recall, I've called in at least once or twice and just made mention of the fact that people in Europe are essentially being arrested for social media posts. And I don't know if you had the time to read The Economist. There's some
I did, yep.
sources.
I have read up on that. Thanks to you pointing me in the direction, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure. And so it would be lovely if we could have more discussions around this. Again, I think that some of the stories coming out of Europe are certainly concerning, and I would hope that we can kind of take pause and at least hear about them so that we don't repeat some of the mistakes that are being made there, in my view. And so, yeah, if you ever have an opportunity to have a segment on Bill C-9, it would be lovely to hear.
All right, Pat, thanks very much for that, and I will absolutely take it under advisement. David Drewe, who is with us weekly, Monday mornings at 11:30 with Drew's Views, and David knows about as much about federal politics as anybody I know, and we touched on it today, and David reminded us we're talking about a 600-plus page omnibus bill here. So there are many elements within, and David highlighted one particular clause of it. There is so much more in that because, again, you're talking about an omnibus bill which covers so much ground in so many pages, and oh boy, one segment would certainly not do it justice, but perhaps we could highlight something else, much like David was able to do for us this morning, just by way of example. So great point. Thank you for expressing the concerns, because we should be having these conversations around what legislation is going to look like in this country and maybe what we can learn from others along the way. Kyle, you are next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. First of all, I got your message now on Facebook. I got locked out because I got this stupid two-factor authentication, and I lost my code to it for my old phone when I got a new phone. So I wasn't ignoring you. It's just I got locked out because I don't want to be hacked on Facebook. All the times I got this stupid two-factor authentication, but I locked myself out.
Oh my
God. Messenger, my Facebook.
Kyle, so you are the ultimate character. Do you know that?
I know.
I didn't get your message because I got locked out of my own Facebook because I tried to you made it too secure for yourself, Kyle.
I did. And you know what? I was laughing. I was like, oh, no. I got probably 20 messages. People are like, are you okay? Are you alive? And I'm like, no, guys, it's fine. I just got locked out. Okay. So aside from that, though, where have you been? Dude, it's been a busy winter time for me getting presents out. Delivering for this. This is great. This is busier than last year.
Wow.
I am working like a dog. And then every time I call, sometimes it goes busy. And as you say, busy show for busy people, right? I can't get upset for that. But
oh, my gosh.
I just want to say one thing, though. I heard about Preston Paul passing away. And, I'm going to miss his, sometimes he did go a little long on the airwaves, but I'm going to miss that. His character of, all his stories and And, like he taught me a lot about gun rights and being and all that stuff. Like, since I've listened to the show, I'm really going to miss him on the radio. And I know that he's looking down on us, and he's probably laughing at us and enjoying, and probably wants to call in the show right now. But my thoughts and condolences are with him and his family. And, it's not going to be the same. And I hope that you keep his number, Mike, as a Farwell's force, because, he definitely was one of them. So my condolences, and I will try to call more often, okay, when I have some time, all right?
Listen, you're a busy guy, and that's 100% okay, as long as you're all right out there.
Right?
What's that?
No, it's Christmas season.
Sure.
This is the busiest time of the year for me, right?
I get it. I totally get it.
I love you, Mike. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. We love you, too. I had a few people ask about Ketchup Kyle, and I was looking in my files here, and I don't have Kyle's Ketchup polka song, which is too bad. But I shared earlier how Paul from Preston will always be remembered.
This whole amalgamation thing sucks.
And Kyle, another one of our regular characters with that polka song that he had recorded about Ketchup Kyle. We also have this, though, from Kyle in the past.
That's the whole point. I want to make more and more money. I like money. I love money.
He loves money. He's busy right now, and that's okay. It is absolutely okay when you get too busy. I understand that. But it's good to know. It just, especially those of you who have become characters on this show, check in every now and again. We just want to make sure that you're okay. And absolutely, Paul from Preston will forever remain number 3 on this list, official list of Farwell's Force members. I've got another buddy at number 97, affectionately known to me as Ogie. We lost him in the last few months, and I'm pretty sure Gary Schaefer, I can't find him offhand because our list is 250 strong, but I'm pretty sure Schaefer was on our list as well, and he will remain there. We lost Gary about a month ago too, and this is the cycle of life, isn't it? But once you're an official member of Farwell's Force, you stay there. Your number does not get taken away, given away, or in any other way removed from you. You will be there forever, whether you agreed with me on amalgamation or not. Paul from Preston will forever be number 3. Ernie is with us on Rant or Rave. I cannot believe you are calling today, my friend.
Mike, how you doing?
Wow, well done. How you doing? I'm great, pal. I'm top of the division. How are you doing looking up at our Pittsburgh Steelers?
So I was... First of all, okay, I know I did the service to Paul with that. I tried to do the best I could.
It was very well done. I picked up on it. Thank you.
And I just want to say, the guy didn't always get to his points quick enough, but I enjoyed and I loved his common sense. And I remember how popular he was on the show. We even had the one day, the part of the call-in hour was whether he should call in or not, because he was going to stop calling in or something.
You're right.
How big of a deal is this guy?
Such a big deal. Yeah, that's the thing. We... Over time, we had put him in the penalty box ourselves sometimes because he went on a little bit long. Then he went on his own, I'm not calling in anymore. And you're right, we voted to bring him back. And he came back. It's been fun over the years. What a character.
I've always enjoyed those calls. Mike, you can't even pretend to be... see, you already gave up. You gave up on the season and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, if Mike brings it up, I'm going to call him back and say, you don't care, Mike. Remember, you didn't care how the season goes and stuff. So you can't be pushing on me now.
Okay, now hang on. So, Ernie, full disclosure, I had no idea. I literally got home yesterday from Guelph, and I was pulling into the driveway listening to 570 News Radio, and we had the sports coverage on, and they were starting to give early scores. So I sat there and waited before I turned the car off to hear. I didn't follow the game at all. I only heard the final score. But then when you call, how can I not? You're a Baltimore Ravens fan.
No, you know what? I get that.
Okay.
There's a lot of controversy to that game.
Was there? What happened? Fill me in.
Oh, buddy, stripes. Okay.
So the referees robbed you, eh?
Mike, you
typical sore loser, eh?
Mike, I wouldn't have called it if I was a typical sore loser.
Okay.
I always call in when I say win
That's
or
true.
lose, I'm calling.
Okay.
I'm talking. But today, more or less, it was about Paul. And I just wish he could have seen the gun bill get removed. We all know it's the firearms thing is going to, for the most part, we think, and I'm pretty sure it's going away. I wish he could have been alive to see that. But I want to say I really appreciated his common sense on certain issues. Like I said, I didn't agree with him all the time, but a lot of it was just straight common sense, speaking from a guy that you would see at a coffee shop that'd be angry or miserable all the time. But I would have loved to sit down and have a beer with that guy. He's one of those guys on the call of the show. I'm like, man, wouldn't mind meeting that guy. And you heard about that today.
Yeah, good on you. And you know what? We'll talk about football another time. I'm glad you shared some memories of how Paul impacted you. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, buddy. Take care. I'll tell you what. I mentioned earlier, I did get the chance to sit down and share a meal and a beer with that guy. Puts tomato juice in his beer. What's the deal with that? What's up with that? Seinfeld would ask. It didn't make much sense to me. I like my beer straight, but Paul liked it with a little tomato juice in there. And we would go to the Fiddle in Preston, and we would enjoy our time together. And I'll just share this again if you missed it earlier, because Ernie reminds us that, yeah, sometimes it took Paul a little while to get around to his point. And I will never forget watching him online. I bet you we could find it somewhere. Justin Trudeau, our former prime minister, I think he was prime minister by this point. It might have been during the campaign. Doesn't matter. Former Prime Minister Trudeau was in Cambridge for an event, and somehow the card-carrying conservative that was Paul Robertson got into the event, and not only that, had the chance to ask a question. So they handed Paul Robertson a microphone at an event being hosted by or attended by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. There was no moderator. There was nobody holding the microphone for Paul. He got to hold the microphone himself. And it was about 4 minutes in before somebody started, excuse us, sir, there are other people here. Can you get to your question? And that was Paul to a T. He was going to have his chance to have his say. And he had many a say and left an indelible impression on this show before. From one of our longtime regular characters to another, Farwell's Force member number one. Because she's number one in our hearts. Hi, Mary.
Oh, hi. So I will forever have that even when I pass?
Of course, Mary. Of course, you are number one forever.
Oh,
yep.
That's so sweet. Anyway, I just have been overwhelmed, and you stole some of my thunder with the outpouring for Paul. And I think he's looking down and saying, I didn't know that I made such a difference.
That's a good point, Mary.
What do you think?
I think you might be onto something there.
Okay, all right. But then my next point, and you kind of made it, see, some people don't understand what a community we are on 570. Like if somebody doesn't call in for a while, I was even wondering about Kyle, and I thought, where what's happened to him?
Oh, he's a busy guy. He's got to go make that money.
Yeah, I know, but you know what I'm saying?
Sure, I wondered about it too.
We care if we don't hear from people.
You're right, we do.
And I think that is just so gorgeous. I hope when I die, people look down and say good things.
Mary, you know what? We're going to about that laugh forever and ever. I'm going to have to record that. I'll go back and get that so we always have Mary's laugh. That's my favorite part about her. Another one of our regulars on this show, which is what a show like this is all about. It is a community. We do have a regular cast of characters who help make things interesting and entertaining, even if sometimes we disagree with them or we roll our eyes and think, oh my goodness, not that person again. But the show is for all of us here in the region. It's the most interactive show you'll find on the radio anywhere in this community, and you are welcome to participate every day, especially from noon until 1 when we open up the phone line. So don't be shy. Maybe you've never called before and you want to join this cast of characters, this motley crew. You're more than welcome here. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Winding down Rant or Rave, which is the Monday edition of our Talkback Hour. Still plenty of time, though, for you to call in and have your say. Back to the phones we go for Julia. Julia, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing your show. I love listening. I just had a daughter in January, so it's such a great thing to listen to while she's sleeping in the car.
Wait a minute. We put your kid to sleep, Julia? I'm glad to hear that.
And it gives me some adult content to listen to during the day. So
I can understand that big time for sure.
And I also wanted to just give a shout out to Mary because whenever I listen, she always puts such a smile on my face. So
that's really nice to hear. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
All right. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
I love to hear that. A little insight. You know, one of these days, if I had enough courage, like I would love, I just get this sense now, Julia, right, needs the adult content as she's in the car with her child sleeping. Like I try to get the mental image of what it is that you're doing, a little insight into your life. I feel like we provide lots of insight into this studio, this life, but maybe we'll turn that around. And one of these days when we do our call-in hour, we'll, just get a sense like, what are you doing? How do you have time to call in? Kyle, for example, drives courier. He's on the road all the time. We hear from truckers and whatnot, but it'd be interesting. You work from home, you listen from there and, take the occasional break and call us because a topic really caught your attention, things like that. I'd be really interested in that. I want to share with you, just in case you missed it earlier today, an email I received from Aaron, who is Preston Paul's son. And we've been talking about the loss of our good friend, or Paul. I can't believe I'm getting the two of them mixed up because we have Preston Paul, who's newer to our show, and the original cranky old man, Paul from Preston. And I say that with love. Farwell's Force member number 3, who passed this weekend. His son, Aaron, sends me an email to mike@570news.com under the subject line, from a passenger seat listener. Mike, as we get older, we start to do things earlier. This is because nighttime driving becomes more difficult. Bright lights and road lines are harder to see. If the roads are wet, those lines completely vanish. On top of that, older people don't stay up as late. None of this is really new information. At the end of March 2025, the small town of Baileyborough had the worst ice storm I've ever seen. Roads were terrible. I was worried trees would fall on the house. We lost power in the afternoon. And as things began to thaw, our sump was filling up fast. I spent hours scooping water out into storage containers to transfer outside. I finally gave up around 8 p.m. and told my wife our basement was going to flood. She insisted I call my father for advice. Around 9 p.m., my father, Paul Robertson, gathered up a generator, some extension cords, and various other things. With my brother as a driving companion, he drove over 2 hours at night in bad conditions. Upon arrival, we got to work, setting up the house with power. Once everything was set, he drove back to Cambridge. Paul saved the day. Why? Because his son needed help. Because his 8-year-old and 5-month-old grandkids were without power. That might be part of it. But the real reason is that is just the person Paul Robertson was. He sure loved his talk radio. Thanks for drawing the blueprints of life out for me. Aaron, that's a fantastic email. So happy to have heard from you. We knew that your dad loved his talk radio. He's been a fixture on this station, as we've talked about today, going back decades, through previous hosts when I would bet you back to the late 1990s when this station went from music to talk. That's when Paul Robertson found it and has been a loyal listener ever since. And I have a funny feeling that some way, somehow, he continues to be a loyal listener. How you doing? That's all the time I've got on the show for today. I am going to be traveling tomorrow. I get to spend my day on a bus, so you get to spend your day tomorrow listening to the least worst of me, or what they call around here the quote-unquote best of. But I'm going to be back Wednesday. I'll do the show from the road, and I'll talk to you from Sault Ste. Marie. We'll pick up these conversations Wednesday morning at 9, okay? I look forward to talking to you then. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.